Okay, so Vaush should be jumping in
Howdy.
any second now. Oh, I think he's here.
How prescient of you. What a stellar prediction. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing A-okay. How about you?
I'm doing pretty amazing, actually. It's been a pretty good weekend so far.
Nice.
And now that I can talk to you, it's going to be even better.
And I'm also doing good.
Okay, I am only semi-simping, guys. So for those of you who have not been to an AMA with us before, on the discord.gg/politics Discord server, it's very simple. So we have an AMA channel, or I'm sorry, an AMA questions channel right at the top of the category. Stick your question in there. Be respectful. Don't be a dickhead. If you want to speak to Vaush directly, he's been kind enough to allow you to do that. You just need to add VC to the end of your question so that I know to unmute you. And then you'll be able to talk to him for a bit. I'm probably going to be giving preference to voice chat questions or people who want to speak to him in voice chat, because I don't want the AMA to be just like me reading off questions. That's super boring. And I'm also going to be giving preference to people who have a disagreement with you, Vaush. So I feel like that'd be more fun for everybody. If that's okay. So, yeah, we'll get started. Again, thank you very much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it. I feel like I haven't spoken to in like a year, which is sad. But for
It's
those
been a little while.
of us in here, yeah, for those of us in here who don't know who you are, what you're about, if you can give them all a rundown of all the crazy shit you do, that'd be amazing.
All the crazy shit. Well,
every single.
I'm a YouTuber and a libertarian socialist, and I have cultivated an uncontroversially accepting, relationship with the rest of the online politics community for my my witticisms and my insight. And I'm sure we'll be continuing in that trend today of not disagreeing over a single thing.
Beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna jump right in. There's somebody who has been nagging me to let them in first since we announced this. So Sayo, you're up. As soon as I find you on the list here. Oh, you got one of those crazy Japanese letter names.
Wacky.
Okay, there you go, Sayo. Whenever you're ready.
Yo, hello, Mr. Vaush. How are you doing?
Howdy. Doing good.
All right. So I got a couple questions. I'm gonna just start off very, nothing crazy. What is your stance on Marxism? Like, do you agree with it?
I think there are Marx's contributions to sociology have been so significant that the entire branch of critical theory is essentially derived from his writings. Nobody can be a sociologist without, in some respects, being a Marxist. And I agree with a lot of what he said. There are some economic prescriptions he made, though, that I think have failed the test of time. And I don't agree with everything. He was a modernist, for example.
All right. So, do you know about Zionism?
Yeah.
I'm sure you do. So, what is your stance on it? Like, are you a Zionist?
I'm not a Zionist, no.
All right, I see. And all right, so I got another question. Would you be interested in a debate with Nick Fuentes?
Oh, I thought you were going to say on Zionism, as though he was an advocate for that position. It's been 2.5 years running. He can just email me and hop on my stream anytime. He wants to make a big show of it with like a moderator and all, but I know how he folds his cards about 3 seconds into any actual empirical discussion, and the real reason he wants to talk with me is so he can, like, essentially verbally shitpost back and forth. And I'm not going to dignify something like that with a moderator. He'd come into a wrestling arena with a cape if he could, He can hop on any time. It's been an open invitation. That's how I talk to 99% of the people I talk to.
Yeah, and Nick is aware of this. I think I spoke to him about it directly like last year, and yeah, he wouldn't do it without a moderator, which is unfortunate.
He's very scared of me like muting him a bunch or whatever. But like I don't think Nick even like screams over people that much. I don't even think that's his style. Normally when I mute people, it's because they're just like deep throating the microphone. So I think he could just come on. It's not a big like he's been like hyping this up for so long. But I know if he came on, he would just like pretend, he would just call me like fat or whatever, and I would call him like, I don't know, gay. If yeah, you know, if he ever wants, my email is public. But yeah, so we're probably both not Zionists. I don't know if that was addressed, but we probably both don't believe in that
All
for
right.
various reasons.
Sure, sure. And the last one, with with a lot of red pill content creators getting banned lately, what is your stance on Sneako and Andrew Tate? Do you think it's fair to limit free speech whenever it fits the agenda? The agenda?
Well, that's kind of vague, right? I mean, technically, you're limiting like free speech when people get arrested for making death threats, right? Because that also fits the agenda of a civilized society. I don't know anything about Sneako. I literally don't. I don't know. I've never seen a single ounce of his content or heard him talk for a second. As for people like Andrew Tate or whatever, I am perfectly okay with there being standards and terms of service for the cultivation of people who can post on social media. I think that we can have a robust discussion within like what acceptable limits there are to that, like what is okay or not okay to ban people for. The idea that we should have like no rules at all is essentially like an anti-civ position though. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like even law, like with police officers and judges and courts, like that's also, limiting people's behavior based on the agenda. If we want to make an ethical argument, we can, but the idea that you shouldn't restrain anyone's behavior for any reason or limit the reach of their voice for any reason is kind of silly and doesn't really have a historical precedent.
All right. But what should be the limit whenever it comes to social issues? What should be the limit?
I don't know. That's really, really complicated. The limit would probably be defined by like an incredibly complicated like set of criteria that you would have to work out and kind of like test to see where, like, because you don't want any false positives or good people getting banned or whatever. Wherever the limit is, I think Andrew Tate was like way over that line, I can't really blame the companies for wanting to kick him off the platform. He's like the pro-rape guy. And he's bringing in all this negative press or whatever.
Was there really an instance where he said he was pro-rape?
Well, he would never say I am pro-rape. That would be a bit on the nose. But yeah, I mean, I saw plenty of clips of the way he would talk about women and sexual interactions with them, and it seems like he had let's say, a nonchalant attitude towards the importance of consent.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be kind of patronizing to just say straight up he's pro-rape? He always says, I mean, he never is against consent. Everything he does with women is consensual.
Well, I don't think he's against consent. I'm sure he likes it when the woman's likes him. However, I think the attitude he has towards consent is a pretty frivolous one. Obviously, I don't have a litany of quotes to provide here for you, but like,
Can you tell us a couple?
Well, no, I don't. I don't have a mental archive of everything he said. But he
Probably healthier not to have one of those, actually.
yeah, probably not. Yeah, willfully expelling knowledge of Andrew Tate from my mind. No, but like we can drop the games, right? Like, I'm right on this. Everybody who likes Andrew Tate because he would talk like that. A lot of Andrew Tate fans, it's like, well, can you prove he said anything misogynistic? Yes, I can. That's why you like him. Like, what are you talking about? Obviously, you weren't going to him for his, straightforward, honest, and respectful attitudes towards women. You were going to him because you feel intimidated by women, and he was expressing, a sort of contemptuous antagonism towards them in a way that made you feel stronger than them, that gave you ammunition to magnify your contempt to women in real life. Like, I know how this shit goes down. Like, we're not, we're not getting real life advice on this.
Do you think, do you think that being dominant over women makes you pro-rape?
Well, that really depends on your definition of dominant, but I never said dominant or referenced sexual power dynamics in this conversation, so I'm not sure why you would go to that as like an adjacent issue, A lot of guys do think dominant basically just means that you get to rape people, though. That's true. It's a huge issue in the kink community. If you go on like FetLife or whatever, it's like a whole trope of like guys who act like dominants, but in reality they just don't care about consent. It's like a whole thing,
Right. Okay, well, thank you, Sayo. Really appreciate it. It's really a real honor to have the oldest Andrew Tate support come on and support him.
No, I appreciate the questions. I really do. Thank you.
Yeah, I do too. Okay. Next up, we've got Where are you, Mister? We've got oh, I'm sorry, not Mister. We've got Skeptomaniac. I think it's from your chat, so I believe it is.
Oh, fun.
Skeptomaniac, whenever you are ready, go for it. Hello.
Hello.
Hey Vaush. Hey, I just had a few questions.
Kill me.
So, so it says that. So what I had written was about the, I guess the future landscape of politics with the newer generation and a little bit of rise in leftist favorability.
Yeah, hit me. Kill me.
How do you
Drive the dagger
how
through
do
my
you
chest.
how do you see that? Do you see that actually like staying through and kind of like an increase of socialist policies as we see like the older generations? Not exactly. I mean, eventually they will die out. I guess. Do you see a real future of more socialist policies through a changing demographic?
I don't know if I would necessarily think of them as socialist policies. Generally speaking, it seems like an interest in left-leaning economic ideas tends to resurge sometime after an economic crisis. Of course, we had 2008. COVID has caused its own crisis. Stuff like this exacerbates the material contradictions of capitalism and therefore pushes more proletarians towards class consciousness. So there is a tenacity in that. However, I don't know how effective a generational metric will be. We have to remember, of course, that the anti-Vietnam War protesters and hippies of the 60s ended up being the staunch conservative boomers that we know and love today. Not all of them. It's not a direct one-to-one, but there is something, time can erode the class character of a generation. So I guess only time will really tell what happens with, the young people today. Though it seems like right now we're heading not towards a period of relative stability, like what we saw after the end of the Cold War in the 1990s, but rather toward a period of increased instability thanks to climate change. So it's possible that as things get worse, it will, in a way, kind of cement the antagonisms people feel towards our economic system.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, it definitely is going to be, if I had to guess, a different climate after. And then last thing was, so we saw with Andrew Tate, kind of like the resurgence of, hyper masculine things. And sorry, I'm not as prepared as I thought I would have been. But
That's okay. I've talked to plenty of people, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being a bit nervous while talking to a live stream. Take your time.
Okay. I guess the Andrew Tate stuff has been talked on enough, but I kind of want to mention what I think is kind of a solution, and see what you think about it. So this goes in hand with the issues that Andrew Tate and toxic masculinity cause, and we see that we don't really have this issue with either trans women or trans men, and like these destructive characteristics, because there's undeniably like an objective issue with if you want to talk about assault and murder, like an incredible disparity. And so I thought about it, and I think that the reason that we don't have this issue with trans men and women, and why we can, and I guess how we can fix it, is that it comes with the reassessment of gendered socialization.
I agree with that. I think that it's like you know, it's like creme brulee, really. You know, once you crack the sugar on top, there's a lot underneath. If you can, being trans often requires a kind of critical attitude towards gender norms. You know, once you've adopted that attitude, I think it's easier to be a bit more introspective about you know, the nature of the systems and expectations that you're subject to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I guess like being trans almost necessitates looking at your socialization and the differences between how uh, men and women are socialized. And if we were able to do this and just look like for cis men or anybody to analyze their socialization to work on reducing the harm caused by negative characteristics, because I don't believe that it's like some intrinsic thing to people born male, because that's why we don't see the issue with trans women and why we actually see like changes over time, like decreases over time of this issue. So because of that, I guess I wanted to ask you, how do you think we ask men to look introspectively about their gendered socialization to have, positive male attributes or masculine attributes and become more more thoughtful?
Well, I don't really think it's about introspection. If you ask a group of people to engage in introspection, they're usually going to shy away from you because it comes across as kind of condescending. Nobody wants to introspect on something as fundamentally rooted as people's self-perception of gender. Trans people don't engage in like introspection on their gender because they want to, you know. It's usually because they're forced to, through discomfort or through dysphoria. You know, I think the real solution is simply to provide natural, intuitive answers to a lot of the contradictions that men feel with regards to their socialization. You know, not to ask them to look inward. It's good if they do, by the way. You know, but I don't think that's like the broader solution. Not to look inward, but rather like to give them some better answers from the get-go. You know. Because
Right.
we do struggle, I think, with giving guys like a decent idea on how to act, you know, because you have people who have fallen into this sort of like semi-ironic idealization of the hyper-masculine, like everyone posting GIGA CHAD emotes or whatever, and you know, there are people who look at the GIGA CHAD guy and think like, ah, that is what a real man looks like, and like, holy shit, log off. No one looks like that in the real life. You know, it's like it's exactly the same as like a girl looking at like an anime girl or whatever and going like, ah, that's what women really look like. You know, it's like, holy shit. At least the anime girl is an abstraction that you can imagine looks something like a human being, you know, but the Giga Chad guy, nobody looks like that. But you know, people fall into those traps, and I think they're looking for answers on what kind of guy they should be, and unfortunately, it seems like it's kind of a path that leads inexorably either towards like being some kind of like self-cuck feminist soy boy who's always like begging for scraps of pussy from girls with blue hair, or they have to like strive eternally to be some sort of archetypically masculine avatar, a figure they can never actually be until like the depression and body dysmorphia drives them to suicide. It's not a great system. We can probably do a bit better.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I agree that we. I guess the most important thing would be for alternative, positive representation and goals. But I still believe that largely introspection is will. I mean, if we talk about like Nietzsche's Superman, right? I think that increasing introspection would be necessary for us, to kind of move forward. But I think until we get there, we definitely, yeah, I agree that, more alternative representation is good. And then last thing I wanted to ask, thank you, by the way, is are we going to see any crop top merch?
We probably should. You know, they're easier to produce than t-shirts too, so I don't really have an excuse.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I am patiently waiting for that announcement, and thank you.
God willing, one day.
Great.
Blame me, okay? White Nervosa messages back way faster than I do.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
Skeptomaniac.
Mhm.
Okay, Spectre, you're up. Go for it.
Hey Vaush, how you doing?
Howdy.
Hey, hope you're doing well. I have two questions. First question, I'm a fellow progressive like you. I'm in the Progressive Victory server. A question that's kind of been like on my mind, and I'm sure that's been on the mind of a lot of other progressives, right? Is who do you think would be a good contender, a progressive candidate that is, for the 2024 election if Biden were to not run again?
Well, he says
You
he's
think?
not going to run. I think he flip-flopped on that once. I don't know. In terms of like progressive contenders, I mean, AOC obviously is the person who has the most
Yeah.
clout, but I don't think there's any reasonable shot of her winning because she emanates and exudes youth and inexperience. You know, at least perceptively. So I don't think it would I don't think it would play over that well. My honest answer, as disappointing as it is, I don't think there's any contender for a progressive in the 2024.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think like there are people that could be fielded, but I don't think there's a real candidate. I don't think there's a real shot.
Yeah, I think progressives are like kind of at a loss after Bernie Sanders in a way. Like I think we're looking for a new Bernie, and I think we're kind of struggling in that. And yeah, I've heard names like John Ossoff be thrown around. I haven't looked into him really well, but I believe he is the one who put forward legislation to bar congressmen from being engaging in insider trading, and I thought that was pretty based. But yeah, I guess we're on the same boat then in that regard. Second question, I heard you talking about the Mars landing and the Mars missions in the stream earlier. I was wondering, have you heard about the Artemis missions that NASA's planning?
I've heard about them. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
Okay,
much
you
about
heard.
them at all. I haven't like looked into them.
Okay, are you familiar with Lunar Gateway?
I'm not.
Oh, okay. So this will probably be interesting for you. So Artemis, actually, Artemis programs are basically a long-term effort by NASA to get back on the moon and land back on the moon, and I thought that was really interesting. And we're actually planning to do that by 2024, 2025, which is like really soon. And Lunar Gateway, actually, NASA's planning on building a lunar space station, actually. That's also going to be by the year 2025. I would look into it. I think that'd be really interesting, actually.
Anything that gets us
Base
back
start
to the
granted.
moon.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Gosh, I really appreciate it.
Of course. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Spectre. So we've had a few of these questions come in from lots of people. So I figured I'd just ask it for all of them. What are your thoughts on the witch's demise? Sorry, the queen's demise.
I do not like monarchies. I'm glad she's dead. You know, when you're a part of this, being a member of the royal family, being the queen, isn't really a job. You know, you're essentially a living embodiment of the system that you're a part of. You know, the degree of culpability you have for your participation in that system extends beyond something like being a president or being you know, a politician or whatever, because these people have jobs, roles, expectations. There are limits to the terms of their office, and there are things they can do to be thrown out. There is nothing the queen can do to be thrown out. She has essentially the world's strongest bully pulpit, the tallest soapbox from which to scream. She could have made any case for any position at any time she wanted for the entirety of her very, very, very long life. But ever in keeping with the British tradition, she was quiet and demure, passively abided the atrocities of the empire, you know, at times worsening or slightly bettering them, but never truly using the power of her of her station to do anything meaningful. Given the fact that her station is, as it exists in and of itself, sort of a political nightmare, you know, it's like by default, to me at least, the idea of a monarchy is sort of an inherently repulsive thing. You know, to have a position like that and not even to weaponize it for the betterment of people, I think that's quite repulsive. So I don't, you know, she was an incredibly powerful woman and she lived to be 1,000,000 years old. She got the last laugh on us. I'd say laughing at her death is one of the, you know, one of the tiny insignificant ways we can, you know, take some joy from what was otherwise a fairly negative person in a negative institution.
Awesome. Thank you. Russian Defender, you are up. Go for it.
So I know you like talking in circles and wasting everyone's time, but let's actually have a real conversation where we don't have a bunch of nerds talking. So first of all, let's get some Z's in the chat. Now, what do you have against Russia, number one? And number two, why did you mock Dogina's death?
We already have at least 2 nerds talking right now, though. Don't you feel
No,
like we've
I'm
stepped on the wrong
you're
foot?
the fucking colonizer. That's the problem, right? You have a colonizer mindset.
But am I a nerd?
Yeah, you're a fucking nerd, bro. You're a neckbeard.
Oh, are
You're
you
a
a nerd?
redditor. No, I'm the king of Lebanon.
I see. The king of Lebanon. King. Wait,
Yeah.
why would a leftist support a monarchy?
King of Lebanon. So let me ask you a question. Why are you against Russia? Why are you against Putin? What's wrong with Putin?
Because I think they're cringe and gay. Why do you like them?
Well, because Putin's been running around liberating Ukraine from Nazis who've been killing Russians for 8 years. And the Queen just died. By the way, rest in peace, the Queen. You celebrate people's deaths. You celebrate Dugina's death. You're like pro-death. Why?
Because I'm edgy like an anime character.
Yeah, see, that's the problem, Vaush. You have no fucking pushback at all. You attack the top G. Listen, what's wrong with the top G?
You're throwing in too
Tate-
many you're throwing too many root vegetables into your soup, my friend. The troll would be
Bro,
more believable if you
Bro,
stuck to one archetype.
actually engage.
You have to
Because you've been
stick to
boring
one-
the whole audience, bro. You've been
This
boring
is-
everyone.
This is a common mistake in the drive to be as intolerable as quickly as possible. You jump into too many tropes. You jump through too
Are you
many
done?
hoops.
All right, so let me ask you a question. Did NATO expansion cause Russia to intervene? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, and can you explain why?
Because Russia has demonstrated a willingness to engage in imperialism west of its border anyway. NATO's expansion was a pretext, but in reality, it seems like this was going to happen one way or another. They attempted to do this without direct conflict through Yanukovych, since he was a Putin puppet. But after Euromaidan, of course...
Yanukovych.
I'm very tired. Yanukovych. Well, he's
Come on,
done
Vaush, get it
anyway.
out.
Anyway, after he was ousted, of course, you annex Crimea, the Donbass gets invaded by
Taste.
Russia. So,
Okay, so let's explain that. Let's go through that. Crimea and Donbass. So, did Crimea and Donbass want to be with Russia?
well, I don't know what you could possibly cite to indicate the Donbass wanted to be with Russia, because every
Oh, it's simple
available
because the
indicator,
Donetsk people's. What were you saying?
because every indicator available at the time of the invasion.
Actually, never mind. Let me cut you off.
2014,
So here's the thing about Donetsk. The two parties in Donetsk are the New Russia Party and the Donetsk Political Party, both of which support either independence or Russia. They don't support Ukraine. So how come there's no pro-Ukraine
what-
parties in
what
Donetsk?
political parties?
You have the New Russia Party, which is annexation. They want annexation by Russia. And then you have the Donetsk People's Party, which is like they want independence.
Those aren't Ukraine-recognized political parties.
So what? There was a coup in the country. The sovereignty goes out the window.
Oh, I see. So you're telling me that the 2 viable political parties in the area that has essentially been invaded by Russia are pro-Russian political parties.
But those parties existed before the Russians came. That's my point.
Were those the only parties present in that area, or is it possible that the pro-Ukrainian people in the Donbass area have been supplanted somewhat by 8 years of Russian occupation?
So you think there's a bunch of pro-Ukrainians running around in Donbass, even though all the Donbass support Russians? Even though the military of Donbass is literally defending their land?
The military of Donbass.
If you support Taiwan, why don't you support Donbass? It doesn't make sense.
I'm
I mean,
sure
Taiwan's
it
not a
doesn't.
country; it's a part of China. Taiwan, 就是中国. So how can you explain that?
Wait, did you just speak Chinese?
中华人民共和国
He
是
prob-
唯一的.
He
Okay,
probably
okay,
knows a
it's fine.
couple of phrases. I think he's trolling, though. Which is a shame, because I think these questions are fine. It's just,
Oh, Vaush, don't
Okay,
pivot.
so-
Don't
so
pivot.
Vaush, wait 1 second. So unfortunately, no Russia defender enough to know that he's not trolling.
wait, you're being real?
I am
I
dead
wish,
serious.
I wish you were trolling. but
Oh,
he's-
okay. I've been investing low effort because, wait, really?
Yeah, I am dead serious.
Wow.
I'll say the shahada ashhadu an la ilaha
Sure,
illallah wa
so
ashhadu
yeah,
anna
wait, okay,
Muhammadur
so-
Rasulullah.
So we can roll it back a bit then. Yeah, okay. So to answer your questions, more or less in order. A coup did not take place in 2014. Yanukovych made an effort to start gunning down protesters after being informed to by Putin. He was ousted by a populist revolt. You have echo. Mute your mic while I talk, please. which is, by the way, something any socialist should support, of course, a populist revolt, ousting a corrupt cronyist president being bullied around by an imperialist like Putin. Any political outcomes that should take place in the Donbass after the invasion by Russia in 2014 are null, because they're literally living in a state of military occupation. This would be like arguing that there were 0 people who didn't support Hitler in 1939 because all the polls within Nazi Germany said that every single citizen of Germany supported Hitler.
Dude, do you
It's
just like
ludicrous.
rambling? Do you like rambling? Not answering questions?
As for the people of Crimea, the people of Crimea were generally more partial to Russia, but we still don't have any impartial information on their preferences, in large part because the polling that was done for Crimean acceptance of Russian occupation was only done after the occupation, and it was done by the Russians, you know, which of course skews the
Okay,
results
so let's
a
go
little
through
bit.
that. Let's go through some of the things you said. Number one, the coup didn't have enough votes. They were 30 votes short, and then they tried to kill him once he tried to leave the country.
I said populist revolt. What do you
So,
mean?
but it was pro-NATO. It wasn't communist.
No. The people of Ukraine. What do you mean the 30 votes?
Who are the people? The people in eastern Ukraine?
The people of Ukraine.
Who are the people of Ukraine? Who?
People in Ukraine.
Okay, but we demonstrate that Crimea and Donbass are different than Kyiv, correct?
It is true that different parts of the world are different from other parts of the world.
Okay,
yeah.
so let's go through that. You can't just say Ukraine is a homogenous entity, because
I
why
never
this is
said
happening?
Ukraine is a
It's
homogeneous
because there's
entity.
pro-Russians in the east. That's why this is happening.
All right. Even
And they
if there
didn't
were
support the coup.
pro-Russians in the east, which of course there are always going to be some, that doesn't justify foreign occupation. Would you say then that the English had a right to reconquer Hong Kong, given the sentiments in favor of such a thing, after China broke its own rules for the two systems, one country thing, after England gave it back over to China? Should we be allowed to invade and occupy any country that wants to be part of the United States? A lot of countries want to be part of the United States.
Yes,
We're very powerful.
because I like the British Empire, so I don't have an issue with that. But here's the thing, Vaush.
Are you
the
sure
problem
he's
what you're
not
saying,
trolling?
Hold on a second. Here's the problem with what you're saying. You're saying Ukraine is like this homogenous revolution, but the people in eastern Ukraine supported Putin. They supported Yanukovych. And when you violently oust the leader, what do you expect them to do? You violated their democratic rights, so they turned away. What's the issue?
How is it a violation of democratic rights for some people in a country to not agree with the ousting of a corrupt leader?
And so then they can govern themselves. They don't want to be a part of the new leader.
Then why did Russia have to invade?
Because Ukrainians spent 8 years trying to kill them with Nazis and terrorists. That's why.
No, Russians invaded in 2014.
Right. Ukraine declared anti-terror operations in Donbass before Russia intervened. There were separatists there, but there were not Russian soldiers until Ukraine declared anti-terror operations.
The separatists that were being funded and armed by Russia.
Okay, problem? What's the issue? Russia's supporting their people. What's the issue?
Gotcha. So your position is that it's okay for any empire to invade and annex a territory as long as some people in that territory want to be part of that empire?
No. The coup is an important factor in this. I think that if the people in Donbass wanted to just join Russia, sure, maybe that's not acceptable. But because there was a violent coup against the leader, of course they have a right to fight back. They have a right to defend their land.
What violent
They put him at gunpoint in Kharkiv. They try to kill him. That's not violent, Vaush?
The Yanukovych?
Yeah.
No,
Yanukovych. Say it right.
Yanukovych, he fled on his own, and he initiated violence against the protesters. If there was violence there, then maybe he shouldn't have, on Putin's orders, exacerbated conflict with the protesters.
Okay, so first of all, cops attacking protesters who are storming the parliament is like... I thought you support January 6th. I thought you support the Capitol Police.
They weren't storming the parliament. They started shooting people in the streets.
But I thought, January 6th is an attack upon democracy. Well, they try to attack democracy in Kyiv, so what's the issue?
Because they were shooting them in the streets, and the January 6th protesters physically occupied the Capitol building with the intent of executing some of our politicians.
Okay, and so did the people, they wanted to kill Yanukovych.
It doesn't matter what they wanted. What matters is what they did. And what they did was protest outside the building, and that is when the conflict started. They were not allowed to.
And by the way, does that even justify,
building.
even if I grant that, does that justify killing Yanukovych? Does that justify murdering?
Was he murdered?
And terrorism? They tried to. That's why he had to flee to Russia. You don't remember?
Wait, hold on. Yanukovych deserved execution long before Euromaidan. Don't get me wrong.
What?
They had moral pretext to oust that motherfucker a long time ago, that corrupt piece of shit. While his countrymen starved and he jerked off on his golden toilet in his mansion to inequity.
So
yes,
let me explain something to you, Vaush. So you don't like Yanukovych, but you like the man-child Zelensky, who's going to cause nuclear annihilation possibly in all of Europe and kill all of mankind. The man-child who's on Zoom calls calling for War 3, that's who you support?
Yeah, I do actually. Has
With
he
sweaters
caused
on?
the end to the nuclear
Oh,
conflict?
sweaters.
Yeah, he's about to lead to the end of the world, which is
Well,
why they
then
need to
why
negotiate with Putin.
is Russia the country that keeps threatening nuclear war and Ukraine isn't?
Because they're backed into a corner. They're not the Soviet Union anymore.
Backed into a corner by defensively invading Ukraine, and then when they
Yes.
start losing, they start threatening to nuke everyone because they're sad that Ukraine had more allies than they had money.
Yes.
Oh, well, that seems like a skill issue, to be honest with you.
Well, no, it's not a skill issue. Nuclear weapons are always on the table at the end of the day because Russia must defend its
You're
sovereignty.
right.
They
We
must
should take
defend
them
the Russian
off the
people.
table for Russia. A
and-
CIA coup to get rid of your nuclear. To be fair, of course, you've probably long
If
since
you do a
sold.
coup against Putin, you will
Well-
see the response of the Kremlin.
The response of the Kremlin. You know what the response of the Kremlin was the last time we fucked you guys over? It was, yes, sir, America, sir. We put Yeltsin in charge. He got drunk and we raped your country, okay? Don't act like Russia has any
Wait, who's
power
Putin?
over
Why
us.
is here's the thing. All of NATO's against Putin. All the globalists are against Putin. Joe Biden's against Putin. But guess what? You can't stop him. The sanctions are freezing over all of Europe. We're marching towards Kyiv. We're marching towards Kharkiv. There's nothing you could do to stop us, Vaush. At the end of the day, your army of Redditors and nerds cannot stop the pro-Russians. Even if we're outnumbered 100 to 1, infrared is rising, know what I'm saying? So that's the reality.
I still can't tell if he's trolling. Uh,
Z!
Okay, well,
It's
Let's
a-
get some Z's in the chat. Z! Easy W.
It's impossible to
Z.
tell because past a certain point, people take pride in their retardation. So they confidently march into all the shit that normally people would be embarrassed to say, you know? I don't
Yeah.
like conversations like that because I think that political debates are most fun when people like when there are stakes. Like the fun is in the thrill, right? Like both people come with sincere positions. And the challenge is to like navigate the conversation without your sincere positions being torn apart or for you being embarrassed for holding them. But if a person has zero investment in what they say and they're like proud of saying dumb shit, then there's no actual real stakes, right? It'd be like a person showing up to a poker game with Monopoly money and acting really confident whether they win or lose any hand because they're throwing Monopoly money at the center of the table. Anyway,
Yeah,
I guess what I'm
you're right. I
saying
think
is that person isn't just retarded. They're like a symptom of a kind of brain damage that will literally destroy the world.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that at some point there is like some kind of weird social clout to be gained by just being as aggressively obnoxious as possible, right?
Yeah,
Taking on
it's-
all the bad positions.
I pardon me for sounding like an old fogey here or whatever, but like, oh my god, it's like worse than it was back in the Gamergate days. Even the Gamergate skeptics, like would be embarrassed if they were proved wrong on something. Even the really bad ones, like Sargon or Teal'c or whatever. Like, if you had them in a convo and they were proven wrong on something, like they would clearly get uncomfortable because they, like, it's like, they care about being perceived as correct. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just the old way of doing things, and now we're all just smashing our faces against bricks as hard as we can.
So that actually is something that I've been semi curious about myself. So what do you think about like people like Infrared or that whole crowd?
It's the lack of investment that gets me, okay? Listen, it's not that I have a problem with debating retards, okay? That's my bread and butter. Everyone who disagrees with me, as far as I'm concerned. I'm just kidding, a little bit on that. The problem is the lack of investment. It's performance art, right? Like, essentially, they're in a position where they can never lose a conversation because nothing they say and nothing I say will in any way change the positions held by them or the people who like them because it's all performance art. There's no like sincere investment of positions. In which case it's not really fun, right? Like there's no actual engagement taking place. It's just two people saying things in the same call. So that's the thing that really bugs me. I don't mind necessarily talking to the Russian propagandists or the fascists or whatever. I've talked to plenty. I have noticed though, I don't know if this is coincidence or if there's something determinative here. It's that this attitude of like nothing I say actually matters. Everything is ironic. I will be stupid and it doesn't matter. Haha. And then like at the end of the convo, I'll just scream and leave. I actually see this more from the tankies than I do the Nazis. Which makes me wonder if this is like an actual worse breed of intellectual dishonesty. Not necessarily in terms of the negative consequences of the ideology, but rather in terms of like the degree of engagement. It seems to me symptomatic of a kind of ideological weakness. Like they know their positions aren't rooted in reality, so they have to turn it all into some kind of performance art in order for them to be heard by others, because if they try to sincerely defend their positions, they would get obliterated by even, like, passably competent rhetoricians, you know? Whoa, a cutaway? I know. I'll make it quick, I'll make it worth your time. Listen, Republicans have long had an advantage when it comes to online canvassing because they're pretty effective at weaponizing new mediums like YouTube and Twitter to pull people over and actually integrate them into their political campaigning. Democrats have fallen behind in that respect, and that's a serious weakness in their organizing. I don't have the political know-how or discipline to be a political organizer, but I know people who do, and that's why I've partnered with Progressive Victory 2022, which is an organization that's trying to get folks out canvassing, phone banking, text banking, get them to match up with any local campaigning opportunities that they might be able to contribute to. Now, I know these folks. They're real nice. They're real professional. My fans also know these folks because according to this map that my editors are going to put up, there are over 7,000 people who've already signed up for their Discord. Listen, I'm begging you, okay? The primaries are coming up. If you go to vaush.gg/map, you can see not only all the folks who have signed up, hello Pigeon, but you can also see how to sign up yourself. And it's simple as, you know, you go, there's a little Discord server, you just, if you want to give them your email so they can send you opportunities, a lot has already happened. Folks have gone canvassing. Jamal Bowman did a talk. They did phone banking for him. It's been real neat. And honest to God, we're coming up close to the end of the primaries here, so there's never been a better time. I know touching grass is scary, but I swear we talk about so much doom and gloom politics here. Feels a lot better to actually do something, you know? Something off the computer chair, if at all possible. Seriously, join. It's important. If you're American, if you're not, then get the heck out of here. Scram, you goofball.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to jump on to the next question. This one is from Dog Teeth. Dog Teeth, whenever you're ready.
Hello?
Howdy.
Hello.
Hey, Vaush, how are you?
Howdy. Oh, also good.
All right. Oh, that's good. So I have a bit of a two-parter for you here. I'm sure you're familiar with the Discord sphere in politics. There are a few videos of you going around. So the pretext to that second question will be this. Do you still identify as an anarchist?
Man, I'm really sympathetic to a lot of anarchist ideals, and I keep getting contradicting answers on what it means to be an anarchist. Can I just say that as a libertarian socialist, I would fit in their camp? Like I can be adjacent? 99% of the time when I see anarchists anywhere, in theory or social media or whatever, when they say something that I tend to agree with it, you know? But there's always some, like, little... I'm on board with the ideology, and then there'll be like, you know, anarchism means immediately abolishing hospitals and restaurants, and then I'm like, you know, there's always something that loses me here. But, you know, broadly, I'm sympathetic. They're the least malicious of the lefty spaces, that's for sure.
All right. So in saying that, do you yourself, though you are sympathetic, would you call yourself an anarchist?
I guess just for the sake of semantic efficiency, I would not. I would just call myself a libertarian socialist.
Okay. So the follow-up question I have is, so this meme video of you is positively radioactive. You say, as an anarchist, you don't like the FBI, but then you go on to say that the FBI can be trusted to prevent civil uprisings. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what you meant specifically by, you know, you can, on one hand, you say, you know, fuck the FBI, the government institution, the establishment, blah, blah, blah. We can't trust them. But, you know, if a civil uprising were to happen, we need someone to handle it. And you refer to the FBI as this quote unquote someone. Could you just elaborate a little more on what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. As long as we live in a world with an FBI, we have to understand what their drives and motivations are, because they're a very powerful institution that we have to live with, you know, for now, at least. And the FBI is indeed good at identifying and responding to what it perceives to be threats to American hegemony and American political stability internally. I don't think the FBI is as politically partisan as most political agencies in this country. That is to say, I think that a lot of their decision making is motivated by what they perceive to be a genuine and apolitical interest in defending the country from internal threats. Obviously, that is itself a political bias. You know, defending America from threats is a phrase loaded with political bias. But I think it's important to understand that, because if you take a look at what they've been up to for the past decade and a half, like, they've been more interested in combating the far right than the far left. Most of their public statements have been about the prominence of white supremacists within the police, or about how, like, this group or that group have, like, you know, been associated with far-right neo-Nazism. Of course, there's the whole Mueller investigation stuff. There's the modern seizure of stuff from Mar-a-Lago and all the federal agencies involved in that. The feds are constantly getting shit, nowadays more so from the MAGA crowd, because they don't like the fact that the feds are actually doing their job, which is, of course, federal investigation. I think that if you're a leftist, you have to understand the nature of this behavior and how to effectively use it. And right now, like, let's be clear, socialists are not capable of stopping fascism from rising in this country. We are weak, and we are insubstantial. That's just the way of things. But as long as the FBI is acting as a bulwark against the worst of what they perceive to be internal threats, I think it's fair to say, like, yeah, you know, I may not like or trust the FBI, but I can trust them to be a wall against some types of civil instability. And in this case, the civil instability is not from Fred Hampton, it's not from Martin Luther King Jr., it's from Donald Trump and the MAGA cronies. And to that end, I'm happy that they're around in this specific instance, you know. It's like it's a third party, right? It's not just right versus left. There are other agencies. We have to be aware of what they're up to. Otherwise, we can't really make use of their behavior or take advantage of it.
Right. So let me just piece these words together for a second in my head. In your view, you see the FBI as an institution separate from the establishment of, you know, let's say the general government as it stands right now. You see them as a third entity overseeing both right and left issues, correct?
Yeah, well, I don't think that their political bias shifts immediately with the current presidential administration. I think they, much like our brass in the Pentagon, I think they represent more of an archetypal, like, American institution, like capital A, capital I, than they do the whims of the current administration. And if the current administration, or the former one in this case, is openly fascist, I don't think they necessarily sway with that wind, at least not immediately, and not as extensively as they might otherwise.
Do you believe that the FBI as an institution is, I wouldn't say protected, but maybe immune, so to speak, to being partisan or being infiltrated in such a way so as to be made partisan?
No, not at all. It just hasn't happened yet to the extent that they've gotten as bad as the far right. It could happen though.
All right. Thank you. So I have one more question. What's up with the horsecock meme?
I don't know what you mean.
Oh, there's quite a few pictures and videos that go around about you talking about horse dick. I just wanted to know what's up with that.
I'm just a proud aficionado of drawn anthropomorphic furry pornography of young stallions with giant cocks. You know, as I think as are we all. You know, nothing out of the ordinary there.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, I would say that horse cock is objectively the best looking cock that there is in the Animal Kingdom. As
The
far as
voice
I can
of reason
find.
in this call.
And I've done a lot of research on this, and it's just the best aesthetically that there is out.
Listen, we're all guys here, okay? I have a large penis myself, but I'm just saying,
Of course.
at some point, you know, maybe if you're looking at it, even if the animal's standing on two legs, you know, come on, like we got to draw a line somewhere.
There's no limit to how big the dick can be. It's in the realm of imagination.
The dick size, but the size of the dick and relative to what it's attached to.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Maybe in real life it would be inconvenient to walk around with like 8 pounds of dick, like choking your jeans. But you know, that's the magic of fantasy right there. It's in a better world, you know? It's like how when you watch porn, like real life porn or whatever, you know, it's like, oh, the plumber's over. Like, we're gonna fuck in 3 seconds, you know? Oh, I'm getting a vanilla latte at Starbucks. I'm gonna trip on a banana peel and fall face first into her tits, and her blouse is going to come off, and then she'll start sucking my dick. You know, it's a wacky world. It's the world we all want to live in. I'm proud of that.
All right, Vaush, thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Dog Teeth. Next up is Froggy. Froggy, go for it.
Hey, can you hear me?
Howdy.
Hey, I want to fucking know why the fuck did you say that NATO is based despite like you said the fucking NATO is based because it stops Russian imperialism. What do you have to say about NATO intervening in other countries?
Well,
like that aren't even in
it depends on the intervention. I generally support the existence of NATO as it stands right now, because I think that even if we didn't have NATO, the countries that make up NATO, which are already allies, would still do most of the stuff that they do. Like, you know, it's not like Iraq or Afghanistan wouldn't have still happened if we didn't have NATO, of course. But with countries like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, you know, the presence of NATO does actually prevent...
Like fucking boring the audience, dude. Holy shit.
They're free to leave if they want. The presence of NATO in those countries does deter Russian imperialism there, which is a good thing and something worth celebrating. I also think I'm in favor of NATO's intervention in Yugoslavia.
So I want to know.
But like Froggy, if you're gonna ask a question, you need to let him answer it. Come on.
Okay.
So I like those things about NATO. Of course, NATO is made up of countries that I have strong political disagreements with, so there are plenty of things that have been done under its mantle that I don't agree with.
Okay, and I want to know why the fuck did he block me? I didn't do shit to you, little bitch.
Did I block you on Twitter?
No, you fucking blocked me on Discord. Dumb fuck.
I have blocked in the past year maybe 3 people on Discord. You must have been remarkably annoying. That's not a joke, by the way. I normally just ignore my DMs. You must have been exceptionally annoying. Like, the degree of irritation you must have laid at my feet must have... Like this is a you thing. Like, you committed a lot of time and energy to trying to annoy me. I don't block, like, any random people. Like, you're special, okay? I just want you to know that I feel that way.
Hey, thank you, Froggy. And given Froggy, I know that you were really annoying in DMs. You annoy the fuck out of me in DMs. Like, just let's be real. Fipto, you're up next. Go for it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Howdy.
Hey, I'm a huge fan, especially of the horse cock memes. Mighty base Chad King over here. So I would like to ask you, and I probably already know the answer to this. So you like to promote truth, well-being, and I guess just general truth for others, right?
I'd like to hope I do. I'm sure I falter from time to time.
Yeah. So I have a simple question. Do you know what a woman is?
What a woman is? I do, but it's a pretty complicated answer. Are you ready for it?
Sure.
It's a person who identifies as a woman.
So can I identify as Apache helicopter and I all of a sudden am?
Well, I don't think an Apache helicopter is a gender. Gender refers to a collection of social roles and expectations. An Apache helicopter refers to a specific type of military equipment. So I think it's okay to identify with like a set of roles and expectations, because that's kind of a conceptual thing that you can opt into. But I think that there are design specifications for an Apache helicopter that your body probably wouldn't meet. But I haven't met you. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, so question. I mean, what makes it not a gender role?
What makes an Apache helicopter not a gender role?
Yeah.
Because an Apache helicopter, when we refer to it, as I said, refers to literal design specifications. But since gender refers to social roles and expectations, we're talking about something else entirely. This would be more analogous if you were referring to sex, because sex does refer to a collection of physical, biological characteristics. Though even that can be changed these days. You know, we live in a wacky world.
Yeah. So what do you think Zer refers to?
Well, those are pronouns, so they would be a way of referring to people.
Oh, they're gender roles, right?
No, those are pronouns.
No, they're gender roles, right? Like, because well, apparently to Google, there's about 72 genders.
Okay. Zer, those are pronouns. It's a linguistic subcategory, a way of referring to proper nouns, without having to say their name. So Zer would be like he, him. He, him isn't a gender. You're using pronouns to refer to a person who identifies as a man or an object that we consider masculine, I guess, because we do that too.
Wait, so are you saying there's no words that actually refer to gender roles?
Man, woman, like those.
Hey, why not he, him, though?
Because he, him, because those are pronouns. They're associated with
pronouns,
gender roles.
Pronouns do not refer to gender roles.
They're associated with them, but we also use pronouns to refer to things that don't have a gender. Again, like we refer to ships often as she, like, you know, her first voyage. Depending on the country you're in, you know, countries are often referred to as fatherland or motherland, with the pronoun being, you know, he or she respectively. So pronouns are associated with gender, but we use them for a bunch of stuff.
No, I think pronouns are, well, I mean, I would agree. Pronouns are associated with gender. So what is Zer associated with?
I don't know. I'm assuming it would be associated with some kind of xenogender, like a non-male or female, or man or woman.
Yeah.
Some kind of non-binary gender. It could also be that they're using it non-referentially and they just like Zer and also they're a man or a woman, you know. It's possible to use non-gender prescriptive pronouns for a person. After all, we do use the singular they, and that's not gender prescriptive for anybody. So, you know, it's always on the table. I have to ask, by the way, so wait, I don't mind these questions at all. I don't mind you asking them. However, do you think it's possible that you invested perhaps an undue degree of contemptuous interest in the subject? Because there is a lot of interesting stuff to be found here, but the way it gets talked about online, it's like, attack helicopter gender. Like, what are we talking about, right? Like, trans people.
I mean, people invest their
chilling.
whole lives into gender studies, right?
Yeah, well, I have a sociology major, so while I don't have a gender studies degree, I wasn't spitting distance of that department door, so I did see that happening, yeah.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit more people who invest way more time to distort the view of gender roles.
No, I said contemptuous interest. Like, you're not actually interested in understanding, you're interested in, like, reiterating, like, YouTuber slogans to indicate how rational you are over the trans people, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm genuinely interested. I'm interested where this all started.
But I want to talk about this. Is that true though?
Yeah.
Because I know what it looks like when people are genuinely interested in stuff, and there's usually a kind of deferential interest. You know, this, oh, well, can you tell me something? Like, oh, what can I learn from you? You know. But usually when I have conversations with people who are quote unquote interested in gender, what they're really interested in is finding ways to indicate the intellectual inferiority of trans people, or like the conceptual weakness of trans people. But that's not really like an educational process, right? That's just trying to like go to bat for a political position. You know what I mean,
Crypto?
right? Oh no, where'd they go?
Crypto, you there?
Maybe they're being transgendered.
Yeah, the trans has got them.
Oh,
but for those of you in chat who are actually interested beyond, you know, watching 10-minute YouTube videos and regurgitating memes, what I found when I was interested in this stuff is a good starting point was a book called Gender Trouble by I never forget, I never remember her first name, Judith Butler. That was a good starting point for me to just like kind of start to wrap my hands around the concepts, right? And then from there you can expand on. And if you guys are interested, genuinely, I will buy you an audiobook, you know, the 15 of you. So just DM me if you want and I'll get it for you.
I think the real issue is that a lot of it isn't that complicated. It's just we have very strong opinions on the social expectations that get ingrained into us. So you'll have so it would be like trying to explain modern racial dynamics to a person who grew up in like the 18th century or something, right? Like if you tried to explain to them like the concept of a Hispanic person, I feel like their brains would melt. Oh, like, yeah, there can be white Hispanic people and non-white Hispanic people. Oh yeah, this guy is like 1/8 black on their great granddads or whatever, you know. But we all treat him as white because, as you can see, he looks white, and that's just how it goes, you know, white parents and everything. I feel like their brains would melt, and they would just be like, "How can he be white? He's 1/8 black." You know what I mean? But like, it's easy.
Oh, Fifto, your mic's hot, and
that's true.
At least he's alive. It sounds like he's being abducted.
Did he die? Wait, if his mic's still live, did he just die?
It sounds like he's being abducted. Fipt, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here now.
Oh,
yeah, sorry, I
okay.
got disconnected.
Oh, okay. You didn't die though. That's good.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Well, I was going to question because I'm sorry, where did we leave off? Because I got disconnected because I think my phone called another user who was in the chat.
Oh, all I was saying was that I don't think this subject is that complicated broadly, though there is a lot of esoteric stuff at the fringes. But oftentimes when I talk with people who ask me questions like this, in the Matt Walsh-esque, what is a woman type thing, they don't really want to know the answer, right? What they're really doing is testing my knowledge and then trying to find holes in it. Not necessarily a bad thing to do if you disagree with somebody, but it should be framed then as a disagreement rather than an interest in the subject broadly.
Well, okay, so I guess it's somewhat true because I kind of already know the answer to the question I'm already asking. So it's kind of like a rhetorical question in a sense.
Well, what if
the reason I was asked?
Do you mind if I just put my front foot forward then and ask you? So that's my position. Gender seems to refer to a lot of kind of obscure stuff regarding social roles that don't have much to do with biology. So why not just treat sex and gender differently, which we do, and the dictionary does. Like, we all kind of know these are different concepts. They have to be. There's a reason why guys wear suits and girls wear dresses, right? It's not because of our biology. We've kind of socialized ourselves into having different aesthetics. So once we accept that, the idea that a person could change their gender isn't that far off. You can even change your sex, right? Sex expression is influenced by hormone washes. You can literally just inject hormones into your body. It doesn't change everything, but it changes a lot. Certainly enough to put a person in the category of intersex. A lot of intersex people are born already, and they just get arbitrarily assigned a gender and sex based on what the doctor thinks is closer to their visible characteristics. There's a lot of arbitrary, blurry, messy bullshit in the margins of this stuff that people like to paint over.
So, okay, so I'll use a tangible example, though. So Caitlyn Jenner, do you think this person is a man or a woman?
So sorry, I have such a boomer brain. Caitlyn Jenner. Oh, right, that's the world's first transgender person. Yes.
Well, not world's first, but yeah.
The world's first. She's a woman and a dumbass, but also a woman.
Yeah. So in about 100 years, when somebody digs this person's bones up, do you think they're going to identify them as a man or a woman?
They would probably say, actually, I don't even know if it necessarily works that way. I'm pretty sure it can be difficult to sex skeletons sometimes. I guess my answer is like, who cares?
It's in the bones.
So the problem is there are a couple of brain faults that you're sort of revealing with this question. I've already said that sex and gender are different things. Why would you point towards a sexual characteristic to delegitimize what I'm referring to as a gender identity? This is one of the things where we're always going in circles, but no matter how many times I say it, people don't get it, and it makes me feel like they don't care at all. Sex and gender being different things, the only hill trans people consistently die on is the gender identification. You could have people who look like me identify as a woman. Nobody denies my sex as male. That's evident enough. But we're not talking about their sex. So when people say stuff like, well, look at the skeleton, okay, we're not talking about the skeleton,
Well, I mean, because we're talking about truth here.
We're talking about gender.
Yes, we're talking about gender, but the truth of gender. Because we understand that gender refers to something biological. And at least the general population does agree with that stance.
So there's an association between gender and sex, but we're distinguishing two categories that people often unite out of convenience. When we talk about gender, we're talking about stuff that is not covered by sex. That's the definition as we use it. That's the definition as it's used broadly. That's why people say gender roles, Why is it a gender expectation that women wear jewelry but men not? Because in previous societies, the opposite has been the case. It wouldn't take that much.
Exactly.
Digging.
That doesn't matter to me.
Well, that's not a sex thing, right? Go back to another time and place, and there will be guys who wear jewelry and girls who don't. But now it's the opposite. So, is that a sex thing? Did we evolve biologically so our sexes would have different jewelry preferences, or is it just a social construct?
Well, I mean, I know in the past you had men predominantly were the painters, they were the bakers, cooks, chefs, all that kind of stuff. And now women dominate those areas. Even, But now you have women who dominate like areas like nursing and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think it's like has anything to do with their inherent sex. I think they just found something that they're comfortable with, and they end up dominating an area because, well, geez, I would say biologically speaking, they're able to fulfill those roles better than the other sex.
Well, that's why I'm bringing
Like
up
men would be
jewelry,
minors.
because that's why
Yeah.
I'm talking about jewelry, because there's really no like biological explanation for why before in some societies men would wear the jewelry, but today in some societies women wear the jewelry. Or like who
Yeah.
cuts their hair long. Like these are totally arbitrary. Like there's no like you could, if you want, you could like backwards evo psych your way into this, but like there's no actual justification. High heels were made for men, but now they're used exclusively by women. Fedoras were a woman's hat at the turn of the 20th century, but now they're almost entirely associated with men. This is what I mean when I talk about gender. Like it's just, we just have roles for people, you know? We just have associations. But you can change that. Uh-oh.
They got him again.
Oh no! Oh well, it's probably bad form to be spending a couple minutes of dead air between bits of the conversation. But I feel rude just ending it.
Sorry, I'm cutting out.
Oh
so
wait,
much.
hello.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, so
yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I'm just referring to
Discord phone app sucks.
Yes, it does. I'm just referring to jewelry because it's properly arbitrary. Like you can't really root a biological explanation for why stuff like that would have changed in so many places and times. All the different clothing and roles and expectations, the high heels, the leggings that used to be men's clothing for royalty, like, you know, gender and sex aren't the same thing. That's what we're referring to.
Yeah.
So when a person says like, you know, I'm a trans woman, we're not saying that the biology of her body has shifted, though with hormones it will. But we're just saying that like that's the archetype, that's the group, that's like the conceptual space that she wants to reside in. And I think it's better when people have the right to do that, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think anybody has the right to identify however they want. My issue is that when they start trying to pull people into their ideology and expect them to basically kowtow to it.
Well, okay, but that's like the coward's answer, right? Like, I respect your right to exist, but I don't respect your right to say you deserve to exist, is kind of what you said, right? Like, if they're a woman, you know, we're not asking you whether you want to genocide them or whatever. Like, if they're a woman, you know, it would be considered disrespectful to go up to a cisgender woman and go like, haha, man. Like a woman would generally, whether they're trans or not, that would be found pretty obnoxious, I think. So if you're saying I respect their right to believe that, but they're wrong and I'll disrespect them anyway, then we haven't really solved the issue, right? Just treat trans women as women.
I'm not going up to trans people and saying, "Hi, you're a man," or "Hi, you're a woman." I'm not doing that.
But
I'm just saying I'm not willing to. Well, no, I don't go up to trans people and say that, you know, you're dressed as the opposite gender. You shouldn't be dressed that way. I don't do that kind of stuff. Like, I've seen them. I am cordial. I'm not gonna, you know, call them out in a public space. If we have an honest discussion about it, I'll tell them what I believe. But
what's the issue with just letting them, you know, live and let live, right? All they're really doing is like fighting for their right to be accepted as a member of the conceptual space that they've identified into.
Well, the issue with the live and let live mindset is kind of like, well, let's just say like these things are kind of popping up in social groups like Nazism. I wouldn't live and let live Nazism, even if they weren't being violent, like, because I believe that ideology is toxic and it should be eradicated.
All right. Well, I'll agree with you on the Nazism bit. I'm glad we agree on that. The issue I have is that Nazism is ideologically rooted in genocide and exclusion, and trans people are, I guess, what's the issue?
Oh, well, I mean, my issue would be, okay, so if they were just to dress as a woman or they were to dress as a man and they, you know, they just want to be identified as a certain, you know, person or whatever. I mean, that's whatever to me. I don't really care. But it seems like more they want to spread their ideology. They spread it to children. They spread it to people who are outcasts in society.
So the ideology is just that it's okay to be trans. So don't like obfuscate. Like,
oh yeah, okay. So yeah, it's okay for them to be like trans. They can say whatever they want. Heck, they can identify as Apache helicopter. I don't care. But I mean, you just can't force me, and specifically by law, to agree to those kind of terms. And we can see specifically in law that, you know, people are being forced to agree to those terms.
How?
Okay, so in California, nurses who misgender their patients can go to jail for upward to a year.
I would need to see the specifics of that law. We do have existing laws on the book when it comes to discrimination against certain protected groups. So I imagine it would fit within the purview of that legislation. The protected classes we have in the States, but that's existed for a long time. That's not trans-specific.
Well, I don't agree with protected classes because, I mean, look, I am a black man living in America, and I don't agree with stuff like basically, what's the term in law? Like basically how people make fun of the fact that black people can get lighter sentences in court rulings.
Lighter sentences? Black people typically get worse sentences.
But yeah, as we've seen statistically, but in a sense, there's kind of a reason for that in certain senses. I'm not saying in all senses, but
if your issue is against protected classes broadly, then again, this is another sidetracking here, because you're talking about not wanting the right for trans people to spread their ideology because you don't like the idea of the state forcing you to.
Oh no, they have the total right to.
You just said you wouldn't allow the propagation, like you wouldn't tolerate the presence of Nazis.
Oh no. I mean, yeah. So I think we're misunderstanding each other. Like I think that you have the utmost right to say whatever you want, spread what kind of ideology all you want. But at the same time, I have the upright, utmost right to actually oppose your ideology.
Okay, I know you have the right, but I'm telling you, I'm telling you you're wrong. Like, I want to know why you want to exercise that right. You have the right to type the N-word online or whatever, but I'm not challenging your legal right to do what I would consider bigotry. I want to know why you want to do it, though. What's the harm of trans people? Why did you compare them to Nazis when it came to the harm of tolerating their ideology?
Oh, okay. So the reason that I'm opposing it, because there is an actual physical, tangible harm that we've seen. People who go through bottom surgery, obviously, the results of that end up being in the negative.
That's not
I think
true.
they're spreading this to children, so I see a tangible harm of, and I would say children are a protected class, and
So,
we as Americans strive to protect children as well.
I agree.
And if their ideology is affecting children, then I'm going to have a little bit more concern as far as opposing or opposition of it.
All ideologies affect children because we all live in the same system. So obviously the propagation of any set of beliefs is going to trickle its way downstream to children, no matter what. But that's not true. Bottom surgery has been associated with an incredibly positive increase in trans people's sex lives and sense of well-being, and a drop in suicidality. All the data seems to indicate this.
Are you citing any long-term studies as far as that?
I have a document, but my document's been out of date. There have been more studies that I haven't updated my document with. The evidence on this is overwhelmingly positive.
Well, it was a trick question because there's no long-term studies on this.
Wait, so I'm sorry. So are you saying then you have no evidence to support your point, but are rather pointing to a lack of
No. I'm saying there's no long-term studies as far as the positives. Actually, they've actually noticed when they've actually kept up with patients that they've dropped off, or there's been increased suicide, increased depression when you start going into the longer terms of this.
So after the euphoria of a surgery being completed, there is going to be a long-term reversal to the mean. That's always going to be the case. You can find that for surgical results of any kind, up to and including bypass surgery on the heart. The question is, does bottom surgery have an overall positive or negative impact on the well-being of the people who get it? And the answer is overwhelmingly positive, with, as far as I'm aware, no counterexamples. There may be variance in how long-term the extent of that positive benefit is, but I have not seen any studies which indicate that most people come away feeling negative after bottom surgery.
Yeah. Well, have you considered that you're reading other studies over other studies that contradict what you're saying?
If there were studies that contradicted what I was saying, I would have seen them, because it's my job to talk to people who want to show me those studies.
Okay. I mean, I guess that's fair. Well, okay, so I guess I have one last question because I don't want to take up all the the space in here. Well, do you think that in about geez. Yeah. Well, question: do you think transgenderism is helpful?
I don't know what you mean by helpful. They simply exist. I think that as long as
beneficial or healthy.
I think you mean being trans healthy? Hello?
Yeah, sorry. Give me.
I can hear someone.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry about this. My
It's
wife's
quite
actually
all right.
talking to me for a second. Yeah, somebody else can take the call. Yeah, sorry about that, but thank you for your time.
Of course, it's been fun. Have a good time. To answer that question, trans people exist. Whether or not it's healthy or not is it'd be like asking if being tall is healthy. Technically, I think being tall is actually associated with negative health outcomes because it tends to increase your weight and your heart size doesn't go proportionally. I think short people tend to live longer. But everyone wants to be tall because, Giga Chad, big dick, flirting with women, blah, blah, blah. But so like the real question is, knowing that trans people exist, is it healthy to indulge in their self-perception, to validate it, to acknowledge their identity, to treat them how they want to be treated? Or should it be like a kid who thinks they're a T-Rex and you have to be like, oh, that's great, Timmy, but you're not, and you have to eat your food anyway, And the answer is that it is good. Literally all data we have, unambiguously and without exception, point to the idea that the affirmation of trans people's identities is better for their health, which is why it's the accepted medical practice essentially everywhere that acknowledges the existence of trans people. Whether we're talking about acceptance from their peers, from their parents, and medical transition hormones, puberty blockers, stuff like that, the results are good. In fact, I believe that the risk of suicidality for LGBT teens, or is it trans? No, I think it's trans teens specifically. The rate of suicidality drops to 1/17th its prior value if you have support from your parents. That's it. When you hear about like trans people, 41%, blah, 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 a misleading statistic if there ever was one, you're overwhelmingly referring to people who are being victimized by a lack of support by those around them. Just a little bit of support and that suicidality rate just evaporates away. So I'd say that it's good. And all data says that it's good. So we should treat them with that respect. There's no reason not to. Sorry,
okay.
Rambling there. Just wanted to complete the question, because he did ask.
No, I think it's an extremely useful thing to have answered. Okay, so next up we have Patches. Patches, whenever you are ready, go for it. Patches? I don't think Patches is ready. That's okay. And just FYI, because yeah, the transes got them too. So just I want to make sure that you guys have the ability to speak to Vaush. It's extremely rare that you have the opportunity to speak to somebody like Vaush, who's as influential, as knowledgeable, who's able to change minds.
I'll come back a second
it's
time.
true.
I'm having fun.
Well, do you know, because there are a ton of questions, right? The queue that I have already is very long.
Lightning round me for a bit. Give me a fucking hit me. I'm ready. I'm zooped up right now.
Okay. So the issue with even doing that is a lot of these people are like VC questions. They want to speak to you directly. Yeah. So I'm gonna hop into I'll go to Skyrion, right? Or Skyrion, I don't know how to pronounce your name. To replace Patches, and Patches, I'll check on you afterwards. Skyrion, whenever you're ready.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Howdy.
Hi. I'm Skyrion. Sorry. I was a watcher of you, Vaush, from Australia, so I've got a more general, global kind of question, not specifically US related.
Hit me.
So the question is, so what do you think about the rise of the trope of invincible ignorance? That's like the whole thing with GIGA CHAD, with racist text underneath it. This is my opinion, I'm based for thinking black people are inferior, that kind of thing. Like the idea that a bad take, if said very confidently, can be like a powerful rhetorical tool. Like Andrew Tate's like the living embodiment of this, you know? The guy's like a kickboxer, he looks
Yeah,
and how can the left like co-opt this? You know, like I know we did like the OK Boomer thing. You know, I think it's really interesting to see how this particular rhetorical device played out between the political wings.
I don't know if there's necessarily any countering it. I think the issue here is it goes back to like the stakes involved in any conversation. The original Virgin versus Chad memes were self-referentially aware of the fact that the Chad was absurd and ridiculous. Like the one with the Virgin walk versus the Chad walk, I really liked the original ones because originally the Chad, like all the stuff that Chad did was weird and psychotic. Like the Chad walk is he bumps into every person he sees. He has his arm out at long distended angles so that he crowds as much space on the sidewalk as possible. He crosses 8 feet with every like stride, you know? The idea is that he's so masculine and so self-absorbed that it's like a joke, like it becomes a joke, you know? But the problem is that over time, people have done, the original satire has been lost, and now people just associate, like to me, in my mind, like the idea of posting a bad take with Giga Chad underneath it is funny because the joke is that you're some kind of like self-obsessed idiot blundering into a stupid take because your chiseled jawline and massive muscles have kind of insulated you from the idea that you might be wrong. Like to me, the joke is like it's kind of a self-deprecating thing, but a lot of people don't treat it that way. There's no irony. It's funny because all these people online call themselves irony bros, but there's no fucking irony to it. Like they just unironically have all the stupid takes. You know, there's no actual, there's nothing to it. They're sincerely that dumb.
It's absolutely crazy, and it doesn't just extend to just online culture memes and stuff. It's like people identifying with, I'm sure you've seen this like in incel communities and stuff, identifying with the Joker or Leonardo DiCaprio's character Jordan Belfort from The Wolf of Wall Street.
I think
these kinds of people represented in like film, television, who are like, you know, Giga Chads, but they're like terrible people inside of their own shows.
I think it's important to understand that a lot of this stuff is being done by like 14-year-old white boys who have never talked to a woman and never touched grass, which probably also constitutes about 60% of the server, you know. I'm looking at the AMA discussion chat right now and my feelings on this are being confirmed. Like you have to understand that a lot of this is from people who are legitimately so insecure and unaccomplished that the best approximation of confidence they can ever muster is just like posting a muscular guy and saying something stupid underneath it. And to them, that's confidence. That's the closest that they can get. Because the real confidence, which is having a real position, owning it, and defending it sincerely, the actual like metal of men who've built this world, you know, like the actual, the fabric of society, people who are willing to sincerely adopt something and then defend it to their, you know, to their dying breath, that's beyond them. Because they're young and they're inexperienced. And they're quite cowardly, and a lot of them are going to grow out of it. You know, like a lot of that is kind of a temporal thing. But it is one of the great crimes of the internet is subjecting the rest of us to the eternal retardation of these people before they grow old enough to moderate their opinions somewhat. You know.
Yeah, it's just disheartening when you try to genuinely put your opinion out there and someone responds with no, Giga Chad, no.
Well, it's, you know, it's just something. It's much in the same way, I'm sure, that the great philosophers in the Parthenon would occasionally have to deal with shit-faced children running by and flinging rocks at them. You know, it's just part of an engagement. It's unfortunate, but it's just part of life.
All right, yeah, that was all my questions. Just your thoughts on that particular phenomenon. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Okay, next up, Patches says that their mic is fixed. So Patches, go for it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Howdy.
All right, nice. Okay, so I'll mute the stream and go to Discord. So, okay. I'm not here. Can you hear me on Discord? Am I just not? Wait, am I in the wrong chat?
I can hear you
no,
just
you're good.
fine.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, the last question wasn't too bad, but I was hoping I could provide some respite from the 2016 brain questions. So
hit me up.
So I would consider myself a transhumanist, And I think one of the problems, in a lot of ways, with just the kind of futurist and transhumanist community is a lot of them are just Elon Musk dick riders and people who think NFTs are going to be how we pay for coffee in 30 years. And that's just stupid. But technology is incredibly, incredibly important for just the future of our civilization. And I think it just gets conflated a lot of times with just these tech bros who think, oh, yeah, it's so great that we're replacing all the workers with these kiosks or whatever. Okay. Well, my question is mainly with automation and eventually AGI, once we get to it, how should society adapt so that people are still taken care of and people can still be fulfilled?
I think, I mean, the problem we're running into with capitalism as well is that, like, the economic outcomes of the system are treated as self-evident, you know? The logic of capitalism is such that anything which deviates from the natural accumulation of capital in the hands of the bourgeois is seen as some kind of like hand wavy, you know, like a bread being thrown to the crowd. So when we talk about stuff like welfare isn't taken as the default, you know, the insane idea that we might have a base level of provision with the incredible wealth, power, and efficiency of modern society, you know, that's the ridiculous idea. Whereas the sensible, straightforward default assumption is that the economy and the market should just be allowed to run rampant to whatever extent is possible. And everything left over, you know, is the pittance we allow for charity. The same will be the case with automation. With automation, it may very well be the case that literally all wealth, all production, and all economic capabilities are achieved exclusively through the ownership of one single human being. That is entirely possible. It's not likely, but it's something that could happen. And if that was to be the case, you know, what do? Just sort of shrug? You know, you know, well, they got to everything first. What are we going to do? No, obviously not. As even if everything's being handled by AI, the Earth is populated by humans, and I think that what we need to do is stop thinking of welfare and UBI and stuff as like a placating force to keep the proles in line, but rather as the default assumption upon which we build everything, including whatever efficient, economically, you know, streamlined AI-built system we'll have in the future.
Okay. Well, I just remember because there was one point in the past where I think you were talking about UBI, and I think you were really critical of it at the time. And I think the reasons you were critical were reasonable because it was just saying, oh, well, landlords are just going to raise their rent by the exact amount that people get a UBI. And then the benefit is pretty much going to go out the window.
That was a bit of a simplistic answer on my part, but I do think that UBIs are dangerous while we still live under capitalism, because I think that we risk the possibility of an underclass being created of people who have no jobs because there are no jobs for them to have, and they just barely are able to survive because of like UBIs that just like barely gives them enough to live off of, and they're essentially an eternal underclass now because not only do they have way too little, they also have nothing to fight for. It's not like they can fight for jobs because there are no jobs, you know? We're kind of reaching that point right now, I think. But I don't know, maybe that'd be better than absolute deprivation, which might be inevitable anyway under our current logic. I don't know. It's pretty tough.
And also, assuming the possibility of an apocalypse is off the table, if we get to the point where we get AGI, and in my belief, once we get AGI, it's basically the same point we get artificial superintelligence because it wouldn't be that much harder to make it just a little bit better than humans. Although it depends on how we do it. Like if our first AGI is just a simulation of a human brain, then yeah, it's just going to be human level. But
this all is actually a bit beyond my purview for analysis. Yeah. I have no goddamn idea what fancy pants shit people are going to come up with.
Well, the simple way of saying it is just I'm curious. If we get into a world where AI can essentially do everything, including kind of emotional and social tasks, as good or better than humans, then how should humans kind of pursue meaning in that world? And how should we fight in the meantime to set up that world? So another reason that I wanted to ask a question is because with increasing automation and with artificial intelligence, is that the more automation you have, the less bargaining power that workers will have, because workers will be less essential to running that society. And so like in the run up to getting that level of technology, we should probably be bargaining to get it so we reap the rewards of that. But it seems like if we wait too long, then we won't have that bargaining power.
Just remember that no matter how advanced things get, the systems of distribution and consumption are always going to be something humans have a force in. No economic structure can survive the intolerance of the humans who are a part of it. Even if everything is fully automated, there's always something that can be done. It might not be through labor power, just a broader, like, human spirit, I guess. But there's always something to be done.
All right, and my last one is, if you could have a custom robot body, would you transfer your brain to it?
No. I like being made of meat.
All right. Okay,
I
fair
like
enough.
being a meat boy.
Yeah, that was my question. Take care.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, and have a wonderful
You're
day.
welcome.
I gotta piss real quick. Give me just 1 sec, okay?
Go for it. Okay, so the rest of you, so Spooky has been kind enough to put together a queue for me. She's putting together a text queue right now, I think, which is also super helpful. If you're watching the stream and you'd like to get in on the anime, you can go to discord.gg/politics or just politics.gg in your browser. And that will bring you here to us and all of our wonderful, terrible, awful people in the community. For those of you who are still trying to get questions in, I'm not sure how long Vaush is going to stay on. Typically, these things go for 2 hours, but I'm going to, try to squeeze them for as much as I can. So, if I haven't gotten to your question, I'm going to do my best to do it. Just be aware that there are a lot, and I'm not going in order. So if you just add a question in right now, if it's interesting, I might still get to it. So don't be disheartened. Okay, and I think
All right,
you're
I'm
back,
back.
mister. Awesome. Okay.
Howdy.
Next up is Zionist Jules. Zionist, whenever you are ready, go for it. Zionist?
Sorry, they're currently racing into the unoccupied house of a Palestinian to establish a new settler colony. Give them a second.
Okay, Zionist, I'll come back to you. I'll go to Rainbow then. Rainbow, if you're ready, go for it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Howdy.
Hi, Vaush. I just want to say hello to chat real quick. I'm Rainbow, and I've been part of your community for about a year or two now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, it's terrible actually. I got bullied horrible for it. My question, I've written one or two, like if I end up taking up too much of people's time, like you can cut me off. But the first question I thought of when I heard this was going on was, in your opinion, do you think that nationalism can be left-wing or progressive, or does it always inherently end up leaning to the right or being conservative? Because here in Ireland, nationalism is kind of linked to more socialism rather than fascism, even though it's Christian socialism.
I think given enough time, it will always lean right. But I agree that nationalism can be a really, really, really powerful tool in uniting people when there's like a greater thing to fight against. So an example would be Ukrainian nationalism, which I have engaged in equal parts ironic and unironic, discourse. And if like Ukrainian nationalism right now, at least outside the Azov battalion, I think is a liberatory force. So I fully agree it's possible for such a thing to be good, but after Russia gets beaten back, if they do, while things are looking good right now, if they do, given enough time, Ukrainian nationalism will fester and rot, having achieved the primary goal of its resurgence. It will worsen. It will become exclusionary. The more powerful Ukraine gets in an economic and social sense, the more Ukrainian nationalism will turn from the underdogs fighting against Russian occupation to them looking to persecute Russian-speaking minorities within the country, or like people more in the Donbass area. Ireland has not yet reconquered the Isles, but after it does, I hope that you after your victory, I hope you find another unifying force.
Yeah, God willing, we will take England soon.
God
And
willing.
the Republic of the Republic of Kyrgyzstan will be formed. I only ask. I ask because, you know, after hearing like that absolute weirdo from earlier, the pro-Russia guy, like as an Irish person watching the Ukraine-Russia conflict, I'm obviously on Ukraine's side. Because Irish people were oppressed and stuff. It reminds me a lot of, you know, what England did to Ireland hundreds of years ago up until very recently. We're not even, you know, independent 100 years. The next question I had, if there's time, because some other people started asking about transgenderism throughout the AMA, is what do you think as a fellow autist, because I'm autistic myself, what do you think of people who identify as autogender/altgender, or people who believe that their autism is inherently linked to how like they perceive their gender? Because if you think about it, gender is all about social roles, as you've said earlier, and autism kind of, you know, impacts that. So do you think that's a stupid thing to do, to link like your neurodivergence with your gender identity, or do you think it's kind of valid and it kind of makes sense to you? Because when I used to think it was stupid, but as soon as I kind of gave it some thought, I was like, that's true. I do kind of question my womanhood sometimes, you know, because I'm so autistic.
I think it's valid and stupid at the same time. Here's the thing, like real talk, okay? I think that I don't get people who spend a lot of time thinking about their gender identity because I've never had to. It's very easy for me. I'm a cis guy. I've never had to think about it. I am just blundering straight ahead in life, undeviating, until I march to the grave. Fantastic. Makes it easy for me, you know? I understand that to an extent, like other people aren't going to have it as easy. They're going to have to grapple with elements of their identity. If we start doing stuff like autism gender, what we're essentially saying is that gender just means identity, and there's nothing about gender which distinguishes it from identity as a concept. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, right? Like, I'm not a linguistic prescriptivist, you know. Descriptively, if we want to just make those two words mean the same thing, and people are going to go that road, then fucking okay. Like, it doesn't harm the world to do that, you know. When I think of gender, I think of identity that has an association with sex. So man and woman, and then non-binary being, you know, sort of the deviance from that binary, since we do have not a binary, but at least a bimodal sexual expression in humans. And then identity is like a bunch of stuff on top of that. But we call it gender identity already. I guess my broader answer is that, like, at the end of the day, I think a world where people have the freedom to think about this stuff and talk about this stuff and identify this way is always going to be a better world, where smartasses like me are like, technically there's more utility to defining it like this way. Like, obviously my protests here are pissing into an ocean. People are going to do what they want to do, and in this case the stuff that they want to do seems to be motivated by genuine introspection. So like, I don't think it hurts anyone, and if it helps people understand their identity, then fucking go for it.
Yeah, I completely agree, because the only reason I ended up thinking this much about gender was because I was in lockdown in 2020. Like, that's the only reason. Like, I'm not sitting here saying I identify as autogender. I just thought it was interesting that in a broader sense, like, I suppose the reason why I'm so like weird about gender is because it's a social thing, and because I'm autistic, it affects it basically. Thank you so much for answering
my main concern, my only concern, and I do see some lefties fall into this sometimes, is that they mistake they mistake introspection for self-labeling, and there are people who get some kind of like aesthetic or intellectual satiation out of attaching more labels to themselves, to the point that like a Twitter bio is just a collection of 3-letter acronyms just sort of stretched out across the entirety of the character limit. In such a state, you know, I don't know how much real introspection is being done there. I just think that sometimes people want to like label themselves in increasingly granular and hyper-specific ways. And I don't know if that's a healthy way of thinking about yourself. I think that people and our personalities are generally pretty free form, and that categorization, when done, should be done for a purpose, because to do it without purpose is to invite additional meaning to be ascribed to categorization, which I think is politically harmful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just interesting considering you have like libertarian, socialist, or 1963 post-bot in your bio. Like, maybe you shouldn't define yourself by those categories. No, I'm kidding. Thank you for answering my questions. It's just I'm
getting yourself out of there right there. You skating out at the last second. I was gonna give you a talking to. No, I appreciate that. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you, and do another okay, buddy Vaush, you absolute coward.
Yeah, it's about that time.
Yeah.
Thank
All right.
you,
Thanks so much, Vaush.
Take care.
Next up, we have a much less nice person, Pepe Pinochet. Whenever you're ready.
Oh, wonderful.
Hi, Vaush. So,
I'm ready to have a
yeah,
very nuanced and respectful discussion of my political positions.
all right. Well, so you make some points where I guess I can kind of agree with you. Like, you just let trans people exist, and there's no reason to stop gay people from existing. All that, but which I largely agree with. Now, when it comes to freedom of association, both on a micro and a macro level, what are your thoughts on that?
Freedom of association is a euphemism. You already have the right to associate with whom you choose. What it really means is, do I have the right to ban certain races or ethnicities or nationalities of people from occupying certain cities, states, countries? So you're a coward for using the euphemism. What you should have asked me is, how do you feel about the construction of an ethnostate? To which my obvious answer is no.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. Well, no, I don't really think of in terms of ethnostates. So, like for example, a country like Belarus, almost completely fucking white. Now, if they only wanted their people to continue living there and just didn't let in immigrants for the most part, I don't really see that being that big of a deal. I mean, they're not putting people in camps or rounding people up by the millions and deporting them. I mean, I would say there's that kind of ethnostate I'm fine with.
There can be legitimate economic reasons to curtail immigration under some circumstances, though generally speaking, immigration tends to be a pretty positive force for the countries people are immigrating to, especially in a country of Belarus, which, as I understand it, has the GDP of one turnip sitting on a pedestal.
Sure.
They could benefit from the labor they get brought in. If the reason immigration is being curtailed is because there's some sincere economic justification, or during COVID, closing the borders, stuff like that. Okay. But if it's the idea of keeping some kind of racially homogenous population, I think that's extremely gay and cringe.
Well, can you tell me what is necessarily wrong with it if that's what they choose, and they choose to live with the economic consequences? They're not necessarily hurting anybody.
They're hurting people, absolutely, because they're denying people the opportunity to travel freely. We're born on one
It's not
Earth.
their country.
It doesn't. I don't care. You're talking to a socialist. I don't care. Their country is. Countries are lines drawn on maps to describe political jurisdiction. We are born to one Earth. The idea that because of a person's skin tone, they should be disallowed from going around the world, that there are parts of the world, people and places they may never see, restaurants they may never get fat at, just because of their skin tone, it's an abomination to me. And I'll need a better justification than because the home population is racist, because I've never considered that a particularly good argument for anything.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, just because if you value what is, the collective identity of both your ethnic group and the values of that ethnic group, and you just don't want there to be any kind of ethnic tension, and you don't want the culture to change.
Culture will always change, and ethnic
yes, it
tension...
always changes. I knew you were going to say that.
Oh, okay, you caught me there. But ethnic
of course,
tension...
that's going to definitely help. That's definitely going to bring upon change. You can't have immigrants into a country without them causing some kind of change. I think even you know that.
Well, if change is inevitable, then I don't see any reason to avoid it. American culture has been enriched tremendously through the presence of our non-white brethren. In fact, American culture is almost entirely defined by them. So I don't, from an American perspective, I have a very positive attitude towards the cultural changes associated with immigration. Ethnic tension as well. There are no countries in the world right now that don't have ethnic tension. That's the problem with tribalism. Even if you don't have people of different races in an area, people will find something else to get out over. It'll be different ethnic groups or sub-ethnic groups. Ethnicity and race are both infinitely divisible. If you want to get particular about it, you can find incredibly microscopic deviations in the social and genealogical timelines of any set of groups. So I don't think you can avoid conflict. And my way of arguing for this is that Belarus is not a great country. Look at the countries the world around that are ethnically close to homogenous. They suck. The coolest countries on earth, the ones that have the greatest freedoms, the coolest restaurants, the sweetest babes, are, of course, democracies that have multi-ethnic cultural contributions. We're living it up. And part of that, I think, is just because an open attitude, a humanitarian attitude towards immigration and people's rights is just one that begets better culture.
Oh, okay. No, I actually agree. I think we were incredibly culturally enriched. Throughout the particularly 1800s, 1900s, early 20th century, by the Irish, Italians, the Polish, the German. That's the kind of cultural enrichment I'm perfectly fine with. But
Really?
I would say not so much as of post 1965. No, not at all.
But we're okay with the tens of millions of black people that we brought in?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say we're okay with them, to be honest, but they're here.
They've made the most substantial and disproportionate cultural contributions. Whether you're talking about American food, American music, American Oh yeah.
No way.
Well,
of course. Yeah, I mean, they're good at basketball and rapping, and of course, when it comes to
hold your horses.
The blues and rock and roll.
Wait, yeah, okay. Wait. Oh, just minor things like the blues, jazz, rock and roll, and hip hop. Just only the past century of popular music, the world around. Let's not delegitimize that. Not to mention some of the best food in the States, by the way. You go down to Louisiana or New Orleans or whatever, you're going to have yourself a wacky good time. So I guess so. Okay, try to quantify it for me. Like, what's the issue? What's the issue with non-whites?
Oh well, I mean, I don't want to just say non-whites. I mean, of course, I would say probably the biggest racial, or I'll actually use the word racial tension that we have is going to be mainly with the African Americans, and they have contributed a lot. I mean, they have phenomenal, violent crime rates and murder rates. I love it.
Do they?
But and just overall dysfunction and
on average, wait. Come on. Oh wait, hold on. Wait, hold your horses. Okay, we'll take your racism apart one at a time. I love the IQ discussions with people who I know I could bat heads against and reduce theirs to a soup-like homogenate. All right.
Amazing.
So first of all, with regards to violent crime rates, a product of the war on drugs. Not hard to see either. You can look at the change in rates of violent crime committed by different racial and ethnic groups, and it's pretty clear that in line with the fact that the war on drugs was essentially a way for Nixon to deliberately target the hippies and black people, the economic conditions created by the war on drugs then led, naturally, to a sort of gang arms race in the inner city. Inner cities which were predominantly populated, of course, by black people, because white people had fled after the factory jobs dried up in many of these areas, which is why the Rust Belt has so many of the problems that it does today. Of course, if you look at it on a state-by-state level, actually, it's the red states that have higher rates of firearm homicide per capita than the blue states, despite blue states generally having larger cities, which kind of pulls you away from the whole black crime narrative and makes you think it might have something to do with economic inequality, which is something that we have made an effort to exacerbate in the black population for about as long as they've been here. First through slavery, then through Jim Crow laws, through redlining, and through a lot of stuff, part of which being the drug war. As to the IQ argument, position, I guess, that you laid forward, all of the available evidence we have, while not determinative, seems to indicate that the IQ difference between black and white people is pretty much entirely environmental. We haven't closed the gap yet, but it is closing year after year after year. It must be difficult, to be one of those genetics IQ types, when every time the average IQ between black and white people is measured, it's part of a broader trend that closes the gap. And then you have stuff like the Flynn effect, where IQ is so obviously determined by environment that it's difficult to explain the extent to which genetics even come into play. Then you have all those studies that lie about the definition of heritability, hoping that people will be tricked by it, heritability, like if you've got a rich daddy,
I know
then you
what
being rich is
heritability
heritable. Yeah, well then why do the studies and fucking Substack articles on racial IQ differences keep misusing it? Because they think that people reading them are going to fall for it. Heritability doesn't refer to genetics, it just refers to heritability. So anyway,
I agree. And I catch people making that mistake all the time. Now you ended
white
up going
people,
over a lot.
because of your low IQs, your tiny fucking pea-brain white IQs keep misunderstanding I've never met a black person who misunderstood heritability.
Heritability is basically the difference between a population, the variance, for example, with something like IQ, that variance can be explained. They will say that will be due to like heritability. It has nothing to do with, it's 49% genetic, i.e. your genes. I understand the two are completely different things. Now, first of all, when
Thank
it
you
comes
for
to IQ,
rising
I'm
above
not,
the
I am
average
not making it.
intelligence of your white compatriots.
Now, I am not making the point that, well, I will kind of push back. I mean, I would say there's actually more evidence that would point towards there being a biological reason why there might be an IQ disparity, but I do believe that there are environmental ones. Which one weighs more? I don't know. I don't care.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
But
Because,
hold
no,
on,
no,
hold
no,
on. I let you talk for a long time.
wait, hold on. See, we now defer to the inherent imbalance of an AMA. I love to hear people pontificate over how they've suddenly solved the racism question or whatever. But you were talking about why we shouldn't let these folks into the country. Okay? Now I want to be.
People are already in the country.
Yeah, but you were talking about post 1965.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So
but I was talking about the IQ and criminality of blacks, which are not immigrants. They actually can tie their ancestry to the United States further back than most white people can.
I don't care about ancestry. So look, let's just shorten this because I've done these arguments a couple of times. Okay. There's no evidence to indicate that the criminality or the IQ difference is genetic. Literally none, because if there was, then it would have already been touted out and screamed from the mountaintops by every alt-righter online. And secondly, even if all those things were genetic, I would still want them in my country. I am a
amazing,
true and blue border abolitionist.
That still does not dismiss the fact that they have far higher violent crime rates and lower IQs. How they got lower IQs?
So do poor people.
Fine.
Should we just kick all the poor people out?
But they have not closed the gap in over 30 fucking years. It's continuous.
That's crazy. The legacy of being a second-class citizen hasn't erased in 30 years. That's insane. Frankly, I'm surprised they didn't get over it in 5. Yeah, the issue I have is that, we waste our time arguing over here. And by the way, like, there's a reason why geneticists are overwhelmingly left-leaning. Every educated discipline generally is. Things keep panning out in our favor when it comes to explanations for these phenomena.
Not really.
But no, they really do. Trust me. I've gone over the data.
Who's a lefty? Who's over what he's a lefty, but even he's said, well, the fact that we know that IQs vary between individuals. When you see a group disparity, you cannot rule out that there is some kind of a genetic cause.
Of course, he's a researcher.
And I don't even care which one is the fucking cause.
Is that what you're holding on to? That he can't rule it out? He's a researcher. Of course, he can't rule it out. You could never rule something out. Okay, well, upon this pillar of evidence,
claim. It would be an unfalsifiable claim for me to say, oh, no, it's definitely more genetics, bro. I can't fucking prove that. You can't prove it's mostly environment.
Well, no, I can't. Wait, hold on. Wait, I can prove it's mostly environment because all of the accumulated data on racial IQ differences has closed so much over so much time and between different populations all over the world through environmental changes. If you read stuff that was written...
copy answer.
Nope. If you read stuff that was written on the Irish... Back in the 1940s, there was a British neurological researcher who wrote on the average IQ of the Irish back in those days to find that the average Irish was, not a surprise, fucking retarded. The IQ was something...
Well, they are fucking retarded.
That's true. But you know what they are, in addition to being retarded? Higher than 100 average IQ today. But back in the 50s and 40s, it was something closer to 67. So what changed? Well, it turns out environment changed. We see all these examples the world over of environment making the difference. How many examples have we found proving that genetics were the cause of an unbridgeable gap with environmental factors? At this point, none. So it's a waste of a discussion because we don't have the evidence to make a conclusive determination, and every time new evidence comes out, it supports me. So let's talk about what you actually care about, which is that you're afraid of non-white people. Like, I know where these conversations usually go. Yeah. So let's talk about where this conversation actually goes. Who hurt you? Why? And what can we do about it?
Oh no,
Why?
no.
What's the issue?
I love Latina women. Seriously. So like I grew up in the Southwest, like around a lot of Mexican Americans. It's more or less just that when I see demographic change, it starts to become political. So basically political parties start to be parties for different demographics.
I hate it when people make race political. It's starting to change a little bit with Mexican
Americans, but that's obviously going to be something that I think is not good for America.
I agree. Nobody made race political before 1965 in the Hart-Celler Act. I completely agree. What do you mean? People, what do you mean? Dude,
okay.
People make every demographic difference political. Man, woman, coastal, rural America, rural city, flyover states versus like San Francisco, New York, or whatever. People are going to make differences between people, political issues, no matter what. You're going to see that no matter where you go, including Belarus. Well, actually, Belarus is a dictatorship, so actually they don't really have to make an issue of it because nobody's vying for votes. Well, no, even in Belarus. I mean, Putin over in Russia is constantly scapegoating minority populations.
I don't care about these people. I just use it as an example because it's really white. It was a hypothetical.
There's going to be
less about that country.
partisan infighting in any country, no matter what. It doesn't matter whether or not it's all white people or whatever. So it seems like well, why are we racist? You know, oh, well, to avoid X. Well, X is here anyway. Okay, well, to avoid Y. Well, Y is here anyway. What's wrong with letting the homies in?
Letting the other home because they're not my homies. They're not even like one of me. What the fuck?
They're my homies.
Okay. Well, I don't think they're fat and bisexual. They're generally brown and push around lawnmowers.
Well, there are well, hold on. I've had sex with fat and bisexual Latin women. Okay. All right. They're all over the place. Fat bisexuals are in Belarus as well. Also, you want to go gut to gut, lad? I lost a lot of weight in 2021. I see those photos you guys are spam posting over in the Politics AMA server, and you know what? I've lost a lot of weight. Been going on a lot of walks. Out here fighting Nazism with my brisk morning walk, okay? I'm going to go gut to gut and crunch you people.
Nazi? You consider me a Nazi?
You haven't said anything about the Jews. I just think you're a white ethnostater. I don't know if you're a Nazi yet.
I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a little racist, but I'm not like I'm not
a little.
You're pretty racist. Why lie?
I think that it's fine to have an exclusive place, but I'm not talking about like fucking genociding people or rounding people up.
Okay, but the problem is, again, like, this is the issue that I have with you people. You're retarded. You can't build a civilization off of ethnic exclusion and then go like, okay, but like, don't do any genocide though. Find me how many times has that worked, you know? England was pretty much all white people back in the 1600s. Did they keep that shit in their borders? No. America, apart from the slaves that they owned, was pretty much all white by our current definition up through like the mid 20th century. Did that keep us from doing a racism? No. As long as people believe it's okay to discriminate against one another based on their ethnicity or race, they're going to do monstrous shit. So you are hand-wringing over something that you haven't even described the consequences of yet. Like, what's the issue? To promote an ideology that's been responsible for more death than like virtually any other, with the possible exception of Lysenkoism.
Well, no. So the only thing I would advocate for is, first of all, no more affirmative action. And you know, us, I would say as a culture, I'd like to see us not use our race as a fucking excuse for why we have, you know, certain outcomes that we have. Now, of course, like,
you're doing that. You're using race to scapegoat. Okay. You're doing that in this convo. You're saying like the reason America has these internal tensions is because of the existence of people of different races. That's your thing.
No, they're just small part. I think like, you know, liberal NIMBYists, you know, that live in places like San Francisco, New York are kind of like the people I hate the most in this country. Like, I actually don't like them. So, I mean, those are who I would say actually, they make my stomach turn. Black people don't.
I'm happy to hear that. Why can't we all just live and let live? Why can't people?
I do live and let live. I don't fuck with them. I'm not going to go out of, I wouldn't harm anybody or tell somebody, you know, you can't do that or insult them. I'm not that type of a person. So,
but you want to keep them from entering the country.
No, I didn't say that. Well, I think that our immigration, I do think that we became multi-ethnic in terms of, well, I should say racial, a little too quickly. I think it is something that would have inevitably happened in a place like the United States of America. But other than that, I mean, I'm not one of those people who's calling for an ethno-state anywhere. But I do believe in freedom of association, which would be exclusion.
But this is the problem. Everything is fine. Everything going wrong with this country is rooted in fucking capitalism. Like the NIMBYism you referred to, the economic disparities, the deprivation of the workers' state, the fact that politicians only like vaguely gesture at cultural issues and avoid talking about real economic, like this is like we could be 100% white and they would still do this. I just don't get what the deal is. Like, it doesn't seem to be hurting anyone, you know? Like like I always get this like, you know, yeah, with the black people with their, you know, their higher crime rate, their IQs or whatever. Well, you know who else has low IQ and higher crime rate? Poor people in this country. Poor people who would continue to exist in this country if there were no black people. And poor people are more likely to commit crime. And poor people are more likely to have a lower IQ. And those poor people tend to be black nowadays because we've displaced economic inequality onto certain racial archetypes because it's easier to justify racism when you're doing it through economics by proxy. But none of this gets solved when black people are gone. You're just falling for the mantra of the 20th century robber barons, you know? Oh, all of these issues are exacerbated by the blacks coming into our cities, you know? They come to take our jobs, they exacerbate the issues. We could focus on the real issues were only we not without them. But capitalism persists in their presence or absence. We must unite against the greater threat.
Oh, but here, see, and this is right. You've never talked to me before, but I actually believe in something kind of that most right wingers don't believe in. But I believe in a shit ton of funding and support for poor people, especially when they're kids, their most malleable years, where you have to set them up. And of course, I would be willing to spend a whole lot of money on wraparound services because, school funding. If you increase a lot in school funding, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation ended up figuring this out, and that's why they lowered the amount of donations they were giving to schools, is because, well, when it comes to teachers' pay and actually spending on the school itself, it's not even a 10% increase, in the I don't know how they were measuring it, but the outcome of the educations, it almost all of it came from outside of the home, which makes sense because a lot of poor parents are going to be working and they're going to be unsupervised, and unsupervised kids do really stupid shit. I
agree. We need socialism.
Investing in them early is better, not only for them but for society. So we don't have to deal with them as criminals. We don't have to spend money on the police officers, the prisons. We can have productive people later in life. So I'm not like somebody who's writing these people off. Like at the end of the day, Black or African Americans are American. We have to, we all have an obligation to do the best for everybody. That's my opinion.
No,
I don't have like
agree.
an ethnostatist view for this.
Well, I mean, you do, at least at a micro level, but I'm glad you agree on that in some respects. We should probably move on. This I think this has expanded beyond the scope of an AMA. I enjoyed the conversation though. I appreciate you coming on to talk with me.
You should.
Thank you, Pepe.
I love you.
It's interesting. It's interesting that we're about to go to. So we went from one ethnostater, and and the next person up is Zionist Jules. So I guess we're going to talk about the nation that it's attempting to build an ethnostate. It seems like.
Just to warn you, by the way, I've got half an hour left.
Sure. Okay, I'll get in as many as possible. And guys, if I call you up, just be aware that that's the time limit we're working with. Okay, so just like be reasonable.
All right, let's hit it.
Zionist, you there?
Yes, I am here. I apologize. I was busy kicking out some Palestinians.
That's what I thought you were doing.
Yeah, I was, and I'm quite proud of that because, self-defense, yada, yada. So I have a question for you, Mr. Vaush.
Yeah.
And by the way, congratulations on your weight loss. You look very good, very fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
My question to you is, what is your opinion on the state of Israel? And why is it the best country in the world? Right next to America.
It's pretty contentious, actually, but I don't actually think that Israel is the best country in the world. I think it might be quite a bit further down the list.
Okay, I'd like to hear your reasons.
We can drop the pretense. What of my positions do you disagree with?
I'm going to assume a lot because, unfortunately, I don't watch a lot of your content. But I'm going to assume that you don't like Israel because of something like the genocide, pushing the Palestinian people out, yada yada. Something.
It's true. I don't like that.
Okay. So, from your perspective, you think that when the Israeli people inherited that land from the previous legal owners, which were the United Kingdom, worked with the UN to create a resolution to create the state of Israel, and we, the Jews, the Israelis, decided, you know what, we're going to have a small subset of the Middle East while we're surrounded by all these Muslims, right? We wanted a small, tiny utopia of our own, and these people decided, we can't have Jews on this land. We got to do something about it. And we self-defended.
Do you think you might be narrativizing a little bit?
Not twice, not thrice, not even 4 times, 5 times in a row successfully, right? And we bled for that land. So why do you think that, when these people are, I know the rhetoric, the cope and the seethe and the cry, like, oh my God, you're killing the Palestinian kids. When in fact, we're just trying to mind our own business, grow our economy.
How long will this go on? Are you masturbating to the sound of your own voice? Because the audio on our end is not good enough for us to really appreciate the sultry dulcet. Okay, so I don't know why you would begin a conversation when talking to a person who opposes colonialism by positively framing the creation of Israel by saying that it emerged from UK-owned territory in the Middle East, as though the presence of the British in the Middle East has not been historically up there with like some of the worst things to have ever happened in all of history. But yeah, like leaving aside all the narrativization, the story is pretty simple. No matter what legal justifications there were for the creation of the modern state of Israel, it still entailed the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who have been there for a super duper extra long time. It was very bad. They had to move. A lot of people died. It wasn't great. They had to eke out a ramshackle existence in the shadow of the ever-growing Israel, funded and built and constructed as America's premier military base. And over time, Israel has consistently acted in violation of international law and UN, member state condemnation to slowly, painfully kill off the Palestinians. This has been done. Wait, hold on. This has been done in a number of ways. Obviously, the most obvious example would be the settler colonialism shit with the, Israelis will move into like an area outside their walls, and then like Israeli military detachments will be sent to defend them when there's inevitably ethnic conflict because those people are looking to stir up shit, and then the walls get moved out further and further. That's why Israel keeps expanding. There's the fact that water is being kept from the people of Gaza, so that they're being deliberately sort of choked out of provisions. There's the fact that Netanyahu and other Israeli officials have deliberately orchestrated a set of political conditions which would prevent Palestine from ever achieving any kind of liberation by deliberately funding and propagating Hamas as a political extremist group, because political extremism from the Palestinians gives Israel pretext to continue their expansion and justification, which is why you guys cry bully so fucking hard when you're one of the most militarily advanced states in the world. And every once in a while, a Palestinian like child will send a bottle rocket over the border, and you guys will cry about it as you like demolish another city block. Yeah, it's a pretty pathetic behavior. There's not really a justification for any of this, by the way. The only justification a Zionist can pull, the only pretext you can muster, is dishonesty and this cringy, bloviating, oh haha, isn't it based in Chad when we commit human rights violations? But I have no respect for you. You're a piece of shit and you're scum, and nothing you say can take away from that. Talk over me now, will you? Because I'm getting mean now, because your feelings might get hurt. There's nothing funny about like, haha, I'm ironically in favor of genocide. What the fuck is wrong with you? What makes people online like this?
Would you like to speak more? I just have like a few things to say and then I'm out because
sure. The audio quality is a bit crap, but I can understand you, so it's more of an aesthetic thing. But sure, go for it.
Okay, so I understand that from your perspective, this is all morally wrong. This is all terrible. I just don't. I don't understand why you would not respect the UN resolution when it comes to.
Don't care. UN resolutions can be bad.
Okay, well, you have more to say, or can I just say my part? And then
no, I have more to say. UN resolutions can be bad. Obviously, just because a legal body designated something does not mean I'm going to agree with that legal body.
So you take stances depending on what's convenient for you, but at the end of the day,
wait, what? Wait, I agree with some laws but disagree with others. Wait, hold on. You're correct. I do take stances that agree with me. That is true. I am capable of agreeing with some things but disagreeing with others. What the fuck is wrong with your brain? I know what happened here. A Hamas rocket hit your head.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. You seem to have quite the fidelity for UN laws when it comes to your side of your argument, right? But the moment it's respecting, I don't know, any UN resolution when it comes to the state of Israel, you're like, no, these are genociders.
Is this really your best argument? The UN? Is this seriously your best argument? The UN said so 70 years ago. A Hamas rocket hit your head. The explosive payload was just enough to concuss you, but not enough to kill you, and that's why you hate them now.
No. So you
Okay,
have to
so
understand-
outside of me agreeing with some things sometimes, but disagreeing with other things sometimes, what's the next banger you're going to throw at me? Did a Palestinian kid look extra menacing?
The state of Israel was tiny. The Arab League decided to gang up on Israel. We protected ourselves, and then what happened? The moment
We protected you. Wait, don't get arrogant. We protected you. Without American military adventurism, you guys would be a smoking crater,
That's
okay?
not true.
Yes, oh yes it is. Oh yes it is. Oh yeah. You think
in the first war that Israel got help from the United States? This is not true. Second of all, the fact that we protected that land with our blood, right? Now the Palestinians compensate because they're on the losing
with your
side.
blood. Wait. Who cares? Wait, the issue at hand here, they should have won. Like, you guys came in there and you immediately tried to genocide the existing population you're replacing. Israel is a cancer.
They declared the war on us. They initiated.
Oh yeah, they initiated. I know. It didn't begin with you displacing hundreds of thousands of them. You're such a fucking crybaby, dude. Oh yeah, we enlisted the help of some of the most powerful imperial countries on the planet to justify our annexation of a territory and the displacement of an ethnic minority there. Hundreds of thousands of people forced to leave their homes. And then you cry that they're mad about it, and then you cry when using American guns, using American money, you then continue to defend yourself from all the neighboring countries that fucking hate you. You guys are fucking pathetic. No, you're pathetic. Your biggest enemy is Palestinian children with rocks, and you cry about it more than we did about 9/11.
And genocide. And the moment the Israeli people do it, the moment the Jewish people do it, and they're not even
the moment the Israeli people do it, the genocide? Wait, did everyone else just hear it? Did everyone else just hear him say that? He's like, they were escaping genocide, but the moment the Israelis do a genocide, everyone gets mad at us. Yeah! I just heard you say that. I may have been talking over you, but I heard it. Yeah, I will get mad at you when you do the Holocaust 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Hey, Vaush, are you LGBTQ? Are you LGBT? Did you know that Palestinians, they literally kill
That's
LGBTQ
crazy,
people outside,
dude.
right?
I agree. We should just nuke 2/3 of the world because they also don't support LGBT rights. Dude, all of your arguments are literally like fucking neoliberal like meme bait here. Do you seriously believe any of the shit you're saying, or are you genuinely stupid? I know this isn't your first rodeo because your ass is red because you keep falling off the fucking bowl. You stupid piece of shit. How can you agree with one UN resolution but disagree with another UN resolution? How can you disagree with genocide when we do it?
Zionism. Let's go, baby.
How can you disagree with genocide? The people who are genociding don't like gay people. How could dude, you guys' biggest enemy are fucking children with rocks, and you still cry more about it than we did about 9/11. Go piss yourself. Fuck off. Get this guy out of here.
Yeah, I feel like I should have ended that earlier, but it was too good. Yeah, genocidal ethnostates are bad guys, like obviously.
Yeah, I love people who wander into the call like, I heard you're against the based genocide I'm in favor of. Jesus fucking Christ. The internet is a fucking cancer, dude. Holy shit. None of these people would survive 5 seconds like talking to another human being in person. Holy shit. I mean, admittedly, I wouldn't either, but mostly because I'm ADHD riddled and want to be playing with my phone. But, you know, for entirely different reasons. Oh, God.
Okay, so I'm going to do some text questions because we are running out of time, guys. But I'm going to try to get some of you guys in.
I'm having fun.
So next up is going to be from FR Hamper. The question is, do you think declining birth rates in almost every country on Earth is a problem, and what can be done to address it? For example, South Korea currently has the lowest birth rate at 0.8, which means they don't have enough people to fill the army and won't have enough taxpayers. Also, how do you expect to solve this problem with immigration alone when soon the resources of immigration will also have a low birth rate too?
No, it is a real issue. The material conditions dictate the declining birth rate. Industrialized countries tend to have different types of work cultures. We have very low infant mortality, which means that when people have children, they expect those children to live. It's exceptional when a child dies here in the States, where in like a country that's like super underdeveloped, that might not necessarily be the case. Though most of the world is getting on par with this. Eventually, all the world will have a below replacement birth rate, given enough time and enough local development. But that's not good, right? I think one of the big issues right now is that, like, right now, like, having a child is a death sentence for a young professional, you know? I'm fortunate enough that if I wanted to, I could, because live streaming is literally the easiest fucking job in the world. But, like, if you're, like, in your 20s or something, Like, you do not have the time or the fucking money to have a kid. Like, you just don't, you know? For the vast majority of people, having a kid, it's no longer like an economic sacrifice in the way that it used to be, where like, you know, you can either focus on your career or your family, and like people will be like, all right, maybe I'll just be a worker at the plant, but I'm not going to be a manager, you know? And they're still getting like 70K a year and they have union benefits, you know? But nowadays it's like, it can go from, oh, having a kid will keep us in the middle class, to having a kid will literally fucking lock us into poverty for the rest of our lives. Because having a kid is really expensive. There's like studies that show that it can add to the cost of your life by hundreds of thousands over the course of the child's life, like 400, 500,000. Like, what the fuck, you know? Some of that gets picked up by the state, but not all of it, not most of it. It's really, really, really fucked. And I think, like, honestly, the way to approach this is with a pro-worker culture, you know? We need unions. We need a 4-day work week. We need lowered hours when that's not possible. We need to make our economy more tolerable to working people, because if we can't do that, you know, we're essentially condemning ourselves. Like, the only people who will have children are either the ultra wealthy who can afford it anyway, or the people who are so poor that it wouldn't make a difference anyway, you know? And like, fuck, that's really sucks.
Okay. Next up is a question from Xenos. The question is, why are your beliefs about censorship so devoid of nuance compared to your other stances? You've conceded that the social media monopoly is dangerous, so why use a private company argument? If Twitter CEO was like Chick-fil-A CEO and censored the quote-unquote social contagion of quote-unquote trans degeneracy, leftists would rightfully characterize it as constituting censorship of queer speech. So why deny that social media censorship violates free speech when it happens to right-wing or edgy people?
Okay, I don't think my view lacks in nuance. I think I have literally the most fucking nuanced view on this of all. But to reiterate it, any institution will have a point where they no longer want you to use their services. That is always going to be the case. That's the private company argument. Obviously, I want private companies to have terms of service. If all this stuff was done publicly, I would want them to have terms of service, because state enterprises also have terms of service. There are government websites where you can be banned from the comment section if you act like a dipshit. There are government buildings where you can be ousted for not wearing shirts and shoes. There are decorum standards everywhere, all in society. The idea that the internet can just be this infinite free haven of people to behave literally any way they want with no consequences is still here if you just make your own site and don't do anything illegal to people. But if you want to carry that attitude over to the gigantic multi-billion-dollar like social media empire that has real life consequences that actually affects people's lives day to day, like, no, it doesn't exist. Nowhere in history has there been a point in time where you can just do anything and the people who are allowing you to do it just have to tolerate it. And that's not an anti-free speech position. This is just a regular understanding of how our systems work. I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging that. The question is, where should the lines be? What should our terms of service be? It's not censorship for a Nazi to go seek heiling on Twitter and then get banned. I'm sorry. Like, it's a very simple, like, decorum. You could call it censorship when people walk into their local Denny's, start Sieg heiling and screaming Nazi slogans, and then get kicked out, but nobody makes a fuss about that. You have to understand that with the expansion of online access to audiences, so too have we expanded some of the tendencies of pre-existing enterprises when it comes to the cultivation of their audiences and the cultivation of their platform. It's just something we have to accept. There will never be a true free speech platform. 4chan was not a true free speech platform. They curtailed, what, furries and Gamergate or whatever. They made 8chan, which kind of was, and you know what 8chan was? Full of child porn. They made Gab, which was immediately full of censorship. They made Parler, which was immediately full of censorship. They made Truth, which was immediately full of censorship. All of the, like, there is no zero censorship. It can't happen. So let's talk about what the TOS should actually be. I'd much rather have that convo than people like dreaming up some fantasy world of just like, yeah, what if we just had a fucking stupid idiot site that immediately devolved into child porn and crimes? I'm sorry, 1 second, my cat's being annoying.
Yeah, no problem. So if you're watching the stream, this is the politics server on Discord, discord.gg/politics. You have a hairless cat?
All right, sorry, I'm back.
That's adorable. What the fuck?
Okay,
I didn't know you had a hairless cat.
Yeah, can you see my stream?
Yes. Yeah, I've been watching it.
Oh, look at her.
Actually,
Wow.
by the way, I have been watching the stream, and what you have like 63,000. I'm sorry, the 6,371 viewers, only 1.8K likes. You guys are fucking up. It's
Honestly,
embarrassing.
they hate me.
What's wrong with you?
Mwah. Goodbye, pigeon. Ooh.
It's a very cute cat.
Yes.
Next on to Twitty. What are your views on morality and how it's formed? And do you think we need religion nowadays or not?
That's a pretty broad question with how morality is formed. I don't think we need religion, except maybe in the Durkheimian sense. That is to say, like rituals that regulate human belief surrounding the sacred and the profane, which you could argue like football is, or like a video game tournament, or anime expo. Like a lot fits into that purview. Religion in the supernatural sense, I don't think we need that. I think that when it comes to morality, because I'm a moral anti-realist and a consequentialist, it's basically just a matter of recognizing the axioms that you have arbitrarily defined, and then trying to build systems that maximize the achievement of those axiomatic values. Obviously, it's more complicated than that, but that's a pretty broad question.
Awesome. Okay, next up is going to be Supreme God Save the Queen, unfortunately.
Oh dear.
The question is, what are your thoughts on the ideas that Ted Kaczynski presents in his manifesto, as in the sections on left-wing psychology and thought, over socialization and the need for power process by identifying with causes larger than themselves? Also, thoughts on Ted Kaczynski in general.
The problem with Ted is that he unironically, genuinely did say and believe a lot of things that were fairly defensible and are in line with some respectable anti-civ takes, but obviously he broadly was a fucking nutter. So you know, I wouldn't go drinking the bathwater on that one, I guess. Yeah. In terms of like the self-identification with, or the ascription towards a cause greater than yourself, you know, I think that kind of fits in with the Durkheimian definition of religion. There is an innate existential crisis to understanding your insignificance in the world, in like a cosmic sense, and I think that people deal with that by trying to identify and align themselves with things they think are important, and causes they think that exist on a higher level than them. And I think that that's a good thing, because I think that can be achieved, you know, that can be sort of put towards a lot of good ends. So my hope would be, I guess, that people can find helpful ways of doing that, fruitful ways. Unfortunately, the internet is very destructive in this sense, because you know, people seethe when I say this, but unfortunately it's true. Like, internet friends 99% of the time are not real friends. The Discord servers you are in are not full of people who will help you out when you're really down on your luck. The connections and bonds that you make online are fleeting and temporal. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with those, but mistaking them for true friendships can be very bad in a pinch. And I think that, you know, sometimes the higher points that people attach themselves to are kind of like faulty and ramshackle and sort of flimsy, you know?
Yeah. Okay, next one is from Romuald Barry. The question is, can you explain how a man that feels he's a woman is different from a man that feels he's a cat or Napoleon Bonaparte? If being a woman is about performing social roles, then what is it being a cat about? What is being Napoleon Bonaparte about? Do these two not involve performing a social role? Can we not create a label to make a distinction between the social realities of being a cat and the physical realities, just like you make the distinction between women and females? And can we not create a label like cat gender or Napoleon gender and normalize identifying with these new genders? In other words, why do you believe that trans women are sane while people who identify as Napoleon or cats are insane?
Of course you could do those things. In fact, I encourage you to if you want to. If you believe that there are social roles and understandings and aspirations and ascriptions associated with being Napoleon Bonaparte or being a cat, and then you think, well, I identify more with that conceptual space than I do with that of the gender that I was assigned at birth, fucking go for it. I don't care. Seriously. Like what? So if we believe there's a kind of Napoleon gender, which refers to what? A collection of archetypes of behaviors, you know? We're only referring to the social space here. What you're describing, by the way, would not be considered mental illness. You might consider a person mentally ill if they really thought they were a cat in the, I guess you would call it the empirical sense, or really thought they were Napoleon Bonaparte. But if a person was like, oh, you know, now you might think this is mad, but this is not necessarily mental illness. This is more esoteric than anything. If a person, let's say a person with colored hair and a nose ring, so it's a bit easier for you to imagine, goes up to you and they're like, you know, oh, right, well, I know I'm not literally a cat, but there are archetypal, social roles associated with being a cat, and there are expectations and tropes and aesthetics associated with being a cat, and I just identify more with that than I do any existing gender construct for humans. Then that would not be an empirically incorrect thing, nor would it be evidence of mental illness. It would be evidence of a very quirky person. Don't get me wrong, this is some quirky shit right here, but you need better evidence, like, than people can be quirky when you're attacking trans people, right? Like, people can be quirky like that. People have been quirky like that. There are plenty of historical figures throughout time, people alive today, and people alive in different societies, who have sort of archetypically identified with concepts that weren't human. Alexander the Great was a lion, was he not? No one would claim he was literally a lion, but if you said Alexander the Great was a lion, you know, metaphorically, you know, allegorically, you know, I don't know. Kind of was a little bit, wasn't he, huh? We call people bears. We refer to people as wolves. We associate traits with inanimate or non-human things all the time, and we identify people with them. The fact of the matter is, identity is complicated, and so is language, okay? My default position is to let people live, like live and let live, until harm can be demonstrated. And thus far, I just haven't seen any harm demonstrated in the crusade against trans people, you know? It's always like, well, wouldn't it be wacky if this was true? Okay, sure, wouldn't it be? Okay, where's the actual harm? We're talking about millions of people here. We're talking about civil rights. We're going to need to come up with some pretty substantive arguments against them to work with, you know?
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So I'm gonna do two more, guys.
Hit me.
And there are a ton of people really mad at me in DMs, because I haven't gotten to their questions. But you know, he's kind enough to.
I'll come on again. I'll come on again soon. It's been fun.
Awesome. Well, we'd really appreciate that, and I'd really appreciate that because I feel like these people are gonna form a lynch mob because I skip the questions. Next up, we have Noted. So he's got two questions. Well, it's more like four, actually. What are your thoughts on Sneako? And do you think he should be deplatformed like Andrew Tate? And would you be open for a discussion/debate with him? And there's a second question after that.
I have not seen any of Sneako's content, so I couldn't say. I genuinely don't know. But of course I'd be open to have a conversation with him, yeah. I know he's kind of in like the red pill, not MGTOW pickup artist? He's somewhere in that conceptual space. I keep saying conceptual. I'm so tired today. I got no sleep. I'm very sorry. Yes, I would be happy to have a conversation with him. I've been trying to get more in this red pill stuff anyway, because a lot of guys seem to be slipping into that, you know, like there are a lot of 14-year-olds out there who are like, they're going online, they're seeing all the fucking sex posting other people are doing. They're thinking, oh, I haven't gotten laid. I'm already 14 years old. And then they immediately descended to neo-Nazism. So it seems like a topic worth addressing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we did speak to the oldest Andrew Tate fan right at the start of this, so yeah, it's definitely an issue.
Right, the oldest Andrew Tate fan.
So the second question from Noted is, oh God, why are you celebrating the death of the Queen? Do you not understand that she was literally just a figurehead and had no real power, and whose job it was to sit on a throne? Also, do you disregard the fact that she ended British colonialism and believe that she was evil purely because she was born into the royal family? Do you have any legitimate reason for disliking her, such as the Diana conspiracy, for example?
No, I don't care about that. First of all, she didn't oversee decolonization. She was in charge when England lost its grip on the world. Those are two different things, you know. Hitler was in charge when he oversaw the decolonization of Eastern Poland, or Western Poland, sorry, but that's not you know, that wasn't a willful process. England would have kept hold of their colonies as long as they could have gotten away with, which, as it turns out, was up until around World War II. Also, she had real power. You know, people, liberals especially, like to pretend that she didn't have any power in spite of her literally having institutional power. But she has overwhelming cultural power. She has a soapbox. She has the bully pulpit. She has an incredible amount of influence when it comes to the general attitude of the British people, and she has remained staunchly fucking quiet on a lot of really bad shit. When she has an incredible amount of power to weaponize in favor of progressive causes. There's a lot of weird shit about her wanting exceptions to like racial hiring standards or climate change stuff, or wanting people to know how much money she had. I mean, there's the whole like Prince Andrew covering up stuff. The main thing that I care about, though, at the end of the day, is the fact that she's a monarch. Yeah, I think monarchs are conceptually disgusting. I think it's fucking ridiculous that a modern country like England would have an actual fucking monarch, not some like pithy little ceremonial token vestigial thing, but somebody who officially does have an enormous amount of power, even if it's not actually used or invoked, because again, it would kind of delegitimize the parliamentary structure. But she has an enormous amount of on-the-books power, and she has an enormous amount of cultural power, and the only reason people like her is because of her bloodline. That's it. It's the bloodline. That's it, you know? I think that's conceptually disgusting, and when you are the queen, you are literally the representative of your nation in a way which is more direct and more pure than what anyone could achieve through a presidency or a, you know, prime ministership. And I don't think there's anything wrong with looking at a person who is the, according to their own religion, God-chosen divine ruler of England and hate them a little bit. I think it's okay. It's okay to have a little, just as a treat, you know, just a little bit of hatred.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that in the question you simultaneously said she had no real power and then credited her with ending colonialism.
Yeah,
British
it's well because
colonialism.
they want her. They want whenever like she presides over something good that happens, it's because she, you know, she like oversaw it. But when bad things happen, it's like, you know, oh well, she couldn't have really stopped that. You know, the truth is that
Yeah,
if
of
the
course.
queen wanted to, she could have been an incredibly vocal voice for a lot of stuff. God, for an example, look at the Pope. The Pope doesn't have that much institutional power, colossal cultural power, which is why he's been stirring up so much fervor within with the Catholics and Catholic-aligned countries when the Pope goes on about like accepting trans people or LGBT people. You know, this is a cultural power he has. He can't literally change nations' policies. I think that's kind of comparable. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Last question from the Deep State, aka Emotional Support Twink. Comrade Vaush, please tell me, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Triceratops.
That's why.
Because I like them.
It's such a weird dinosaur to pick.
Because triangle
Okay,
is
I'm not
the
going to judge you.
strongest shape.
I'm not going to. I'm judging you a little bit, but you know,
Triangle is the strongest shape. They're indestructible.
Okay, reasonable. I don't know. I would have picked like. I don't even know what I would have picked. Doesn't matter. You have a weird dinosaur taste. It's fine.
It's
At least you're correct.
Triceratops.
You're correct about horse cock. That's what matters.
It's the Triceratops.
Thank you very much for coming on today. Lots of angry people in my DMs, so I'm definitely going to press you to come on as soon as you will let us have you on.
Please do.
And
I
really
appreciated
appreciate
it very much. No, I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. It was a good Discord AMA.
Yeah, well, have a good debate. I think you're debating a Fresh and Fit fan next, right? Or later on?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, that's going to be interesting. Hopefully he's not 15 years old.
Yeah, you know, but like, let's not be crazy here. We yeah, no problem. Thank you. I had a good time.
We did too. Thanks again, Vaush. I'll talk to you soon. You have a good day.
You have a good day. Reverse
the
howdy.
rest of you.
I'm gonna say that now. Reverse howdy whenever I end a call. That was a really good Discord AMA. We really like broke ground there. I got so fucking angry at that Zionist dude. Holy shit. Because like the white ethnostate guy felt like more kind of meandering and cowardly, I guess, but like the he just came in here. He was like, do you want to talk about how based and red-pilled it is that people in Gaza don't get enough water? You know, like fucking okay. That was good. You almost did another 416. Nah, that was fine. That was fine. Why'd you go so hard on the Zionists comparatively to the white nationalists? Tone matching. Two reasons. One of them is tone matching. The white nationalist was more conversational and more deferential. You know, like he would sort of respond to what I had to say. The Zionist came in there dick swinging, right? Like immediately like, oh, you want to talk about Israel? You know, like that kind of thing, which immediately like, oh, if you want to be antagonistic, I'll show you antagonistic. The second one is that the Zionist had much worse mic quality, which means that I couldn't, in a direct exchange, I couldn't understand him that well. So just talking over him was more fun. Also, keep in mind, the white nationalist there is like kind of less hard. Like the Zionist aids and abets an active genocide, you know? Like the white nationalist in this case feels like more like internet pontificating, whereas the Zionist walks in here just like actively defending the existing. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like, it feels odd saying the Queen having no power is a lib position, since I remember you having a rant where she said she had no power and would get black bagged if she did anything out of line, so she had no power. No, so what I mean to say is she would get black bagged if she ever tried to institute any institutional power, like the whole choosing the prime minister against the will of the people kind of thing. That would probably get her black bagged. However, she does have an enormous amount of cultural power, like a tremendous amount of cultural power. And that's more what I'm speaking to. I just mean to say, like, the presence of the Queen, I don't think is that much of a practical detriment to the democratic functionality of the UK, and is more of an ideological corruption of the democratic faculties of the UK. Does that make any sense? You know, like, having the monarchy there doesn't literally make the democracy function worse than it would otherwise without her. It's more like her presence there is kind of like a conceptual abomination, you know? Okay, let me turn off the water that I turned on so Pigeon could get the Slurpees, and then we're going to do the Discord call. Hold on. Oh, wait, they just said give me 20 minutes. But I'm ending stream in 30. I guess we'll be reading donos. Hold on. Okay. By the way, Vaush, the first Haas knockoff was a troll. He's just kind of like a Rose Mullet kind of troll. Dude, trolling doesn't mean what it used to mean. Trolling used to mean that you would deliberately adopt an absurd position in order to see other people seethe over it. It's not trolling if you just say things that are wrong and then keep on saying them, right? Like, that's not, because if that's the case, then just any time a person is an idiot, that's like, that's not what trolling is. I thought trolling was supposed to be clever. The idea of identifying with an animal or an archetype like Napoleon is basically what alpha male and sigma male types do. Oh, that's a really good point. The alpha male dynamic was literally adopted from a misunderstanding of how wolves interact in groups. So when you say alpha male, you're literally ascribing like a gender identity based on animal characteristics. That's actually really good. I'll use that in the future. Yeah. Yeah, trolling just means Schrodinger's idiot, where you actually do believe all the stupid shit. You're just saying it like really dumb, so that when other people point out that you're stupid, you don't have to go, "Oh, yeah, I am being stupid." Okay. Ron SKFC, thanks the $2. Really appreciate that. Sake, thank you for the $10. Somebody did bring up Okay Buddy Vaush. Sake, you're wrong. David Garrick with the $5. New here, love what I see. I love you too. AG123 donated $50 twice, representing the server discord.gg/politics, which you all can go to, and I'm sure you could have fun if you were there, but I'll warn you, that server does seem to be composed primarily of insufferable 15-year-olds. You know, so, you know, whatever you can stomach. But I had a good time. Oh, and you also donated with the $20. Does anyone know what server this is on? Really want to talk to Vaush. Yeah, it was just impossible to go through that many questions. Thank you so much for the incredibly kind series of donos, though. I really appreciate that. Al3 Explode, thank you for the tier 3 sub. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Bobby K, thank you for the $2. Far Eastern Myth, thank you for the 2 gifted tier 1 subs. Really appreciate that. Vaush, the federal government should build housing, then sell it at cost to housing co-ops. That might prevent people from destroying it as they'll own it. Yeah, but doesn't that just pass the buck down one line where maybe the next people over might... Yeah, I don't know. The big evil with the tier 2 sub, the Vroach, Ian Kotodia, is a breed of roach usually infesting streaming services, usually found to be the source of and immune to nuclear bad takes, defeated only by... True! Love my nuclear bad takes. Wyatt Bronson and Rigri Sinks, thank you for the $5 both. Really appreciate that. Vaush, I finally got to join my local unit at my job. Here's $5 to celebrate. Also, can we get a shout out to the NoHo stripper strike who are trying to unionize? God, glory be to those Northern Hollywood strippers. I hope they get their $dollar. I really liked how in the first convo I had with the world's oldest Andrew Tate fan, where he was like, can you find any clips of him being misogynistic? And I was like, you know he is, because that's why you like him. And he didn't really have a response to that. That was good. I'm glad. We got getting back to the direct stuff there.